Hello and welcome. Sorry, a tab popped up right then.
Off
That's
to a great
cool.
start. Yes.
We're off to a great start. We're gonna leave it. Welcome to a Boomer episode, Keri's Boomer episode of Pop Culture on a Deep Program with Keri Smith. I'm one of your hosts, Keri. I'm here with Mystery Chris.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. And we have a special guest for tonight's episode. You may recognize him as the editor of Blacked magazine, which is, could we say it's a problematic knitting and crochet magazine?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
You're called problematic. You're probably called worse things.
Well, literally Hitler, the stupidest man in all existence. The list, yeah, it goes on.
So we have an infamous knitter here with us tonight, and we brought you here, Neil, because tonight we're going to.
Because I'm old.
That's also
for the boomer part.
Nobody can boomer it up more than me. You guys, before we started recording, we had problems, and then we come on, and I'm like, there's still things popping up. I don't know what's happening. Anyway, we brought you on though because you're an expert at being British.
Okay, I'll have that. Yeah.
Tonight we're going to be talking about British comedy, specifically television comedy, and this is a pre-recorded episode. We do have a live chat going, so we're going to try and I'm going to try and pop in the chat anyway. And but I'm currently in Europe, so you're going to be watching this in the future. And tonight we're talking about British comedy on television, and we figured it would be great to have an actual British person come on and tell us what we are missing or what we may not know about, and kind of guide us through it. So welcome.
Yeah,
Neil.
my fear is that I'm going to be laughing my head off and you two are just going to be deadpan and just not get any of the jokes at all.
Have to translate for us. Like, oh, okay.
And I'll be like, honestly, it's funny. Honestly.
I don't know if that's going to happen though, because I'm actually a fan of a lot of British comedy. I think it's a lot. Maybe it's not, but I am a fan of, on our list, like I was looking through it, The British Office. That's the only version I've ever watched. Little Britain. I've seen quite a bit of Catherine Tate, all of Absolutely Fabulous. The Mighty Boosh, I've seen a little bit of. Mr. Bean, of course. And of course, Monty Python. So, and then Mystery Chris, are you fans of any of these shows we're going to be talking about tonight?
No, none of
Are you a
them.
fan? Really?
No, of course I'm a fan of the shows. Yeah, my exposure to British comedy was kind of limited because, back in the day, before the internet was what it is now, the only shows we could get were the ones that were on PBS and Comedy Central and BBC America. And so there wasn't a whole lot, but the ones I tended to respond more towards was like Roy Atkinson ones, Blackadder, Mr. Bean, The Thin Blue Line, of course, Monty Python. I think that's the ones I kind of respond to most because I like that weird mix of absurd humor and sometimes this deep satire that was just done very well. And I think a lot of that's because of how educated a lot of the comedians in the shows I just mentioned were, because I know a lot of the Monty Python guys went to Cambridge and Oxford, and Roy Atkinson went to the was it Queen's Mary? What was it? It's a branch of Oxford.
You're right, though. There's two types of comedian in Britain. There's the very posh ones that went to Oxford and Cambridge, and then you've got the really poor ones that were dragged up from nowhere. There doesn't seem to be anybody in the middle. It's either you're at one end or the other, and there is a difference in the kind of humor that they produce. Mm-hmm. I think. My opinion.
What do you think the difference is?
I think sometimes the oh, how do you say it without being offensive? The sort of the poorer people from the working class backgrounds, I feel like it's usually more situational comedy. And I don't mean that as in a sitcom. I mean things that are funny because it's real. That line out of The Simpsons. It's funny because it's real. I think that is how sort of people like myself find humor, things that we recognize every single day. Whereas I think the sort of more highbrow, well, the things they produce aren't necessarily highbrow, but the people that produce them are more highbrow. They tend to be a little bit more clever, and sometimes they completely get it wrong. So some of the worst comedies that we've produced are from those kind of people. And some of the best, to be fair. They kind of, whereas I think the working class stuff, it has to be good, because it doesn't get through the layers of bureaucracy to get seen on, say, the BBC, unless it's good, because they haven't got the contacts.
That's something I kind of noticed and watching some of the shows that I hadn't previously been exposed to. It seems to me, you could correct me if I'm wrong on this, Neil, but it seems like most of the big shows, British comedy shows, didn't focus on like nuclear families in the way like American sitcoms did. Because you think about like 50s, 60s, a little bit of the 80s, especially the 80s, just how many like family focused sitcoms there were, like The Cosby Show and Full House and other ones. But a lot of them, just like you're saying, Neil, seem to concentrate on the working class and dealing with.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you there.
Oh, no,
I'd have to disagree a little bit.
Okay.
There was a lot of family-based shows that were crap. There was a lot of them. So there was a show called My Family that ran for years on the BBC, and I don't know anyone that liked it. It was the most dull show you've ever seen in your life. As there were some of the great ones from the 70s. There was a show called Butterflies that was based on a family. It was about a woman having an affair, and so it doesn't sound very funny, but it was actually quite funny at the time. So yeah, and also we had you guys, you had it. Oh, what did you call it now? All in the Family was our show with Alf Garnett, which was In Sickness and in Health. So that was based on a family. So yeah, there have been them, but maybe they just didn't translate and didn't get sent over to you guys for whatever reason. Maybe it's because you were already saturated with that kind of thing.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, maybe because it wasn't all that different from, like you said, where we were saturated with those kind of family sitcoms. And so the stuff that I know that made it over, it's just so, in some ways, so different than American comedy shows.
And also, when I was growing up, the thing was American comedies. I mean, one of my favorite shows was Roseanne. I absolutely adored that show. The Simpsons, when that came along, I watched, every episode. I thought that was fantastic. And I loved The Cosby Show at the time. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air I used to watch. I like that as well. I can't think of any others off the top of my head. There were some of the really bad ones, like Different Strokes, which I watched.
Hey!
What you talking about, Neil?
What are you talking about?
I bet you've been dying to get that
in. You did that perfectly. I stepped on your line.
It's all good.
Well, why don't we start with, and this is funny because for Americans, when we think of British comedy, the earliest reference I think a lot of us think of is Benny Hill.
Oh God!
And before we started, that's how you reacted. You were like, "Oh," I was like, "Is there anything? This is a lot of stuff we have to cover. Should we cut anything? Maybe Benny Hill."
Yeah, the thing that all the Americans are waiting for, their favorite thing. Oh no, I have to apologize for it. I'm so sorry, Americans, that we gave that to you.
He's sort of, now I actually don't know that much about him, about the show. I just know the cultural reference, the song and chasing women, and that's pretty much it. How familiar are you with him, Mr. Chris?
A little bit. I know a lot of American comedians or people who produce sitcoms in the States were inspired by him. Like, I believe South Park guys were inspired by him. Adam Carolla, if you ever watched The Man Show, there are a number of segments that they pay tribute to Benny Hill, and the whole show was kind of like Benny Hill's show. So yeah, there's a lot of people who are influenced. It was pretty big, and I know, Neil, you're saying that the show is bigger here in the States than it was in England.
Well, I think it may have started off big before I was born, so in the 50s and maybe the early part of the 60s, it was probably quite big. But by the time I was watching it in the 70s and 80s, the moment it came on, you turned off or you went somewhere else. Maybe my grandparents might have liked it, but I know no one, when I was young and trendy and, going out with my hair blow dried and all that and my eyeliner on it, it wasn't what I wanted to watch.
I'm amazed it was on for so long. It's on from 1955 to 1989.
Well, there were a few sort of stars at the time. I think they started in the theatres. Is it like vaudeville, was it called? I think they started there. I think Benny Hill might have been one of those. And there were the two Ronnies as well at the time, and they were on for years as well. But it became very dated, very, very dated humour. So, there was, especially in the 80s, there was a new wave of comedy that kind of took over in Britain. You had people like the young ones, which you're going to mention later. Ben Elton, he's the guy that wrote a lot of the Blackadder episodes. And also French and Saunders and people like that, and it was kind of completely different to that sort of slapstick humor. We used to have these things called they're called postcards. You know what a postcard is, but they were saucy postcards. Have you ever heard of this? British saucy postcards.
No.
And it was that kind of slap and tickle humor where it was always like a woman wearing, a bikini and a dirty old man. And when you went on holiday to the seaside, to the beach, you would get one of these postcards and send it home. And Benny Hill is kind of like the epitome of that kind of humor, where it's all the dirty old man trying to get with the young girl, which is kind of a bit sort of sleazy now,
It's like it get old pretty quickly.
I've got a little clip here. There are many different clips of him kind of with the song and him chasing women. Was this pretty much it?
Pretty much. He did do other things, but I think this is what he's most famous for.
Okay. Yeah, there's the song.
Some music as well.
Ladies.
Baywatch.
Okay. Okay, so this is Benny Hill.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
That's pretty typical.
Okay, moving right along because we've got a lot to cover. So he, as you said, Mr. Chris, his show ran for such a long time, even right up until 1989. But during that time, in the 60s, something else at the very end of the 60s, 1969 to 1974 is how long you said Monty Python ran. Monty Python is really see for an American, I think, for me, Benny Hill is more like this cultural reference point. I know about him, it comes to mind, but I never really watched it. Monty Python is something that a lot of us watched, even Gen X, people who were born after it aired. How big was Monty Python there, or how big is Monty Python today?
Huge, absolutely huge. Well, they came from a show, I think it was called That Was the Week That Was, and that was by David Frost, who he is a news presenter and he's an interviewer, very talented guy, but also a comedian. And the Monty Python guys started on that show and they then went into their own show. But they were always seen back in the day as being sort of the young whippersnappers. The older generation did not like them at all. It was the younger generation that really grabbed onto them. And like now, it's funny, all the guys that were in the Monty Python show, they're all like national treasures now. They're all either dead or getting old, and now they do all the holiday shows and all the things that they would have hated themselves for doing when they were young. But yeah, they're huge, absolutely huge. And you can guarantee you go out on a night out and somebody will quote a line from one of the Monty Python films, more so than the TV series, except for things like the Ministry of Funny Walks. Do you know that scene?
Yes.
Yes.
And the dead parrot scene. You know, these everybody seems to know
Spanish
those.
Inquisition.
Yeah. But the films, I think, were even more popular. You know, Life of Brian and oh god, I can't even think about it. The Holy Grail. Can't think of any others off the top of my head. There was a few.
Meaning of Life.
That's it. Oh god, yes. Yes. I've just seen that. I've just had that image in my head of the woman in the kitchen giving birth to like the 50th child.
It was so weird. But I always reference like it's the machine that goes bing.
We
Not a
do
lot of people have
quotes
seen it,
here
so they
too.
don't know. Yes.
In America, we quote the films, like, you know, the songs. It's the same, you know, The Nights Who Go Neat. I mean, all of it. But
I love that one.
But for a lot of us, we were introduced to Monty Python through the films, and so
Right.
people had to work backwards to find the show. I've got a clip queued up here from the television show. Can we play some of this? You want to?
Cool, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to have an argument, please.
Certainly, sir. Have you been here before?
No, this is my first time.
I see. Do you want to have the full argument, or were you thinking of taking a course?
Well, what would be the cost?
Well, yes, it's £1 for a 5-minute argument, but only £8 for a course of 10.
Well, I think it's probably best if I start with the one and see how it goes from there, okay?
Fine. I'll see who's free at the moment. Mr. Dubake is free, but he's a little bit conciliatory. Yes, sir. Try Mr. Barnard, room 12.
Thank you. Is this the right one for an argument?
I've told you once.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I have.
When?
Just now.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
Didn't.
I
You didn't.
I'm telling you I did.
You did not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this a 5-minute argument or the full half hour?
Oh, just the 5-minute one.
Fine. Thank you. Anyway, I did.
You most certainly did not.
Now, let's get one thing quite clear. I most definitely told you.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
Didn't.
Yes, I did.
Didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, this isn't an argument.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. It's just contradiction.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
It is not.
It is. You just contradicted me.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you did.
No.
You did just then.
No, nonsense.
Oh, look, this is futile.
No, it isn't.
I came here for an argument.
No, you didn't. You came here for an argument.
Well, an argument
It's like
doesn't say
Twitter.
contradiction.
I was gonna say this is like Twitter. You're just being contrary. No, I'm arguing with you. No, I think you're just saying no. I'm wrong.
I haven't seen that one before. I've not seen that clip.
You know what's funny? Mentioning Twitter, I've seen this clip before. I went looking for it, and I happened to find one where in the comments of this video, whatever kid posted this, he edited the description to say, "OMG, Elon Musk just tweeted this." And it has like 7 million views now. And,
Wow.
and he's like, "Here's where you can give me money." Yeah, it's linked. The age of Twitter.
Brilliant.
When I think of Twitter and politics, I always think about the scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. But she's a witch. How do you know she's a witch? She looks like one. Do you dress up as a witch? No. What? Yes, just a hat and a nose.
Should we play one from one of the films, or do you want to keep this
I
to
don't
TV?
It's up to you.
How about let's do one more from TV. So this is one I think a lot of Americans are familiar with. I'm going to surprise you with this one, Neil, because this wasn't on our list.
Wednesdays I go shopping and have buttered scones for tea.
Just some trees and sweets, his lunch, he loves the lavatory. On Wednesdays we go shopping, has buttered scones for tea. He's a lumberjack,
He's okay.
Oh, yeah.
I can be works all day.
I got to freeze and skip and jump. I like to press wildflowers. I put on women's clothing
And go round in bars. On women's clothing, hangs around in bars.
He's unprotected all day. He sits all night and he works all day.
Cut down trees or wear high heels, suspended and abroad. I wish I'd been a girlie, just like my dear mama. I cut down trees, wear high heels, suspended and abroad. I wish I'd been a girlie, just like my dear mama.
Oh, Memphis! And I thought you were so rugged!
What's funny about that is that only about 2 weeks ago, one of my friends who's quite young, about 29, came round wearing a lumberjack shirt, and I actually started singing it, and he just looked at me like I was stupid.
Did he
He
know
had
the
no
reference?
idea.
No idea.
No idea at all. No.
So much of their comedy, and I think this is going to come up more in tonight's episode as we go through some more of these shows, but so much of their comedy, as you've pointed out to me, wouldn't be acceptable today.
Yeah. Well, everybody's seen I don't know whether you're going to show it, but are you going to show the one that everyone's seen recently? I don't want to give anything away.
Is it the I Want to Be a Woman?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. We have, you know what? Just for posterity, is that the right word? So that it's in this episode. Since we're talking about this, let's just show a little tiny segment of it. Now, this is from the movie The Life of Brian.
Agreed. Francis? Yeah, I think Judith's point of view is very valid, Ray. Provided the movement never forgets that it is the unalienable right of every man or woman to rid himself or herself. Agreed. Thank you, brother. Or sister. Where was I? I think you finished. Oh, right. Furthermore, it is the birthright of every man or woman. Why don't you shut up about women, Stan? You're putting us off. Women have a perfect right to play a part in our movement, Reg. Why are you always on about women, Stan? I want to be one. What? I want to be a woman. From now on, I want you all to call me Loretta. What? It's my right as a man.
Why do you want to be Loretta, Stan?
I want to have babies. You want to have babies? It's every man's right to have babies if he wants them.
Just so clever, isn't it? If only they'd known.
It's because then it was, this is absurd. This is comedy.
Now it's everywhere. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Just the language they use, it's such a funny, like, it's every man's right to be a woman. It's every man's right to have babies. And it makes me think of the actual, like, the arguments that are being made today about.
They almost got the pronouns in there. I mean, they got herself, didn't they? But they almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to be called Loretta. And you see people today making, like, in serious, they won't say it's every man's right to compete against women, but they'll say it's every trans woman's right to compete against women. Pretty close. Pretty close. What do you think made, at this time, you said they were huge there as well. Like, what were they doing that was so different or, genius?
Well, if you compare it to Benny Hill, the two shows were on the TV at the same time. So the older people wanted to watch Benny Hill, the younger people wanted to watch something a bit weirder and a bit sillier. So there was definitely a cultural divide by age, because I know my gran would never have watched Monty Python, ever, never. She wouldn't have got it. She'd have been like, it's not even funny. Why is that funny? I don't get it. I can hear her saying it, but I say it now. Some of the humor now, the modern, I just think, well, that's not funny. Why? I don't get it.
We all get there eventually.
Yeah, it's just age, isn't it? It's just what you think is new. It's like music. It's the same with music. When you're young, you don't want to listen to the Beatles. But then when you're older, you might do. But, you want to listen to whoever's new at the time.
I don't know. Some break through, at least when I was in high school, there are some artists like Monty Python. So that was older, but that's when I started watching. It was high school. The Beatles, that's when I started listening to them. It was high school. But I think it's just very few. It's the ones who had a real cultural impact, like break
Yeah.
through to the younger generation. I don't know if young people today, do you think they're doing that in the same way? They're watching comedy from the 80s and 90s or listening to music from then, or
Well, they're probably too busy looking in the mirror wondering whether they're male or female, aren't they? That's the problem. They're too busy thinking about themselves. No, I'm sure they are. I'm sure, but it would be interesting to know what they might be watching things like Little Britain, knowing that you can't watch it anymore. As in on terrestrial TV, you're not really allowed to see that anymore. They'll be possibly looking at some of the, the more contentious humor, maybe. I don't know. I'm an old man. I don't know what the young'uns get up to.
I mean, I think some of them are watching it, but I think a lot aren't. And we previously talked about this, how the younger generation seems less interested in stuff from previous generations than our generations did, because I think we had less choices. And certainly there were a lot of places that were playing more old stuff. And if you had less choices, you tend to watch stuff like I wasn't alive in the 60s, but, Nick at Night was showing Gilligan's Island and Bewitched. And I was watching all those shows. But now with so many different choices, you can exist in a bubble, essentially, and not come into contact with like really old stuff because there's so much new stuff. I mean, I think I read last year there was over 600 new series, or not new series, but 600 television series that existed, which is the most that there's ever been. I mean, in 2002, there was like a little over 200. And so there's just so many different choices now, especially with the internet and gaming and stuff. And I just don't think young people are that interested in watching stuff that's dated visually and some of the humor and other stuff in it.
Do you think they're more interested in seeing each other doing TikTok things that make
rather
than TV stuff? Yeah.
I was going to say, because now they have the technology. We have the technology to do this show. And I think they're primarily watching things like TikTok now instead of even investing in a series.
It's the attention span that's been affected by TikTok and other things. And certainly a lot of shows in the past are a lot more slower than I think a lot of shows now. They're a little bit more fast paced because of that. So that's another reason.
Yeah, instant punchlines. That's what they want, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Instant gratification.
Now, should we touch on Fawlty Towers?
Oh, I used to love this show. This show was always on a Sunday night. And, I don't know whether you have the same thing in America, but when you were younger and you had to go to school the next day, this was on at 9 p.m. And I knew that when this show ended, I had to go to bed. So it was one of them shows where I just didn't want it to end. I loved it and sort of hated it at the same time because of school, but and a lot of it, I think when I was young, I didn't understand. But I still loved him, just his presence as a person was fantastic.
So this one, Fawlty Towers, of course, premiered after Monty Python. And I didn't know until we were talking right before we started that Mr. Chris said they tried 2 US versions.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a look at that too. Here, let's play a clip.
Oh, God, I bet they're going to ruin it out there.
Yes.
Good evening. Everything to your satisfaction?
Well, I don't like the chips.
Sorry?
The chips are awful.
Oh dear, what's wrong with them then?
They're the wrong shape and they're just awful.
I'm afraid he gets everything cooked the way he likes it at home.
Does he?
Yes, I do, and it's better than this pig's garbage.
Now, Ronald.
These eggs look like you laid them.
Ronald.
Look here, old chap.
Shut up. Leave him alone. He's very clever, but rather highly strung.
Yes, he should be. Well, these are proper French fried potatoes. You see, the chef is continental.
Couldn't you get an English one?
Why don't you eat just one or two, dear?
They're the wrong shape.
Oh dear, what shape do you usually have? Mickey Mouse shape? Smarty shape? Amphibious landing craft shape? Crook in the eye shape?
God, you're dumb.
Oh, now.
Is there something we can get you instead, Sonny?
I'd like some bread and salad cream.
To eat? Well, there's the bread and there's the mayonnaise.
I said salad cream, stupid.
We don't have any salad cream. The chef made this freshly this morning.
What a dump.
This is very good.
He likes salad cream.
That's puke, that is.
Well, at least it's fresh puke.
Oh, dear. May I ask why you don't have proper salad cream. I mean, most restaurants.
Well, the chef usually buys it only on special occasions, you know, gourmet nights and so on. But when he's got the bottle, he's a genius with it. He can unscrew the cap like Robert Carrier. It's a treat to watch. And then, right in the face, not on the walls, magic. Mind you, he's a wizard with a tin opener too. He's got a Pulitzer Prize for that. He can have the stuff in the saucepan before you can say haute cuisine. You name it, he'll heat it up and scrape it off the pan for you. Mind you, skill like that isn't picked up overnight. Still, I'll tell him to get some salad cream. I mean, you never know when Henry Kissinger's going to drop in, do you? Oh, sorry.
Do you know who Robert Carrier is?
No.
Oh God, I'm really showing my age. He was the Galloping Gourmet. He was an Australian chef, and he used to have this show where he used to do everything was done really fast, and he would cook, and then at the end he would get somebody out of the audience to sit with him, and they would eat it as the credits went up. So that's the reference there. But the thing about that isn't the best clip, I don't think. But the thing about why Basil Fawlty is so funny is because he's desperately trying to be English in that sort of English politeness, but he's failing every moment because everyone around him just is annoying him too much. And it's that everybody understands that feeling of uncomfortableness, you know, when something isn't going in an English way, you know, as in, you know, everyone being polite and nice. And it's like the thought of being in that restaurant with him and that going on is just like, ooh, you know, it's really awful.
And no one is polite. You know, it's like the worst of customer service.
Well, this is the funny thing is, like, in Britain, we don't have customer service like you guys have. You know, it's only just starting that. You know, you would go to a cafe and people would be rude to you. It's you know, they would literally throw things at you or put the change on the counter rather than into your hand, and you know, that's kind of how we used to. The customers are always polite, but the people who are serving you aren't. Because it's based on a real place. Fawlty Towers was his experience in a hotel in Cornwall, I think it was, or Devon. And that's how he based the entire thing based on this awful hotelier.
I had no idea that it was based on a real place.
Oh, but you can't wait to come to England now.
Neil, did you hear that they're remaking it or coming out a new version?
Oh, I hope not. Please, no.
Yeah.
They'll just.
I mean, John Cleese is involved, so I don't know, but still.
Well, John Cleese is too old now, I think, to you know, he's no longer cutting edge, and he's they'll ruin it. Because the thing is, the whole point of it was the low-level racism against the Spanish chef Manuel. You know, they were cruel to him, but it was funny. You know, I know it sounds weird. And you know, you had the whole, have you seen the German episode with whatever you do, don't mention the war? So that is probably the most famous episode, where he ends up getting so frustrated that he's literally goose stepping around the hotel, you know, with a like doing that kind of thing, you know. And like now you wouldn't be able to put that on TV.
It would be too controversial. Yeah, I'm reading this. It says that in a poll, a Radio Times poll in 2019, Fawlty Towers was named the greatest British sitcom of all time.
Yeah.
And because it's so popular, that's why they're trying to do this reboot.
I really hope they don't, because I think that was the beauty of it. Is we mentioned earlier, didn't we, that the really good British shows were very, very short. They didn't last for years and years. So Fawlty Towers, there were 12 episodes, 2 seasons, 6 episodes each. That was it. And we all remember it as being longer than it actually was. But I think sometimes if you revisit something, it's not going to have the same impact. You know, it was a very of its time. You know, you're even looking at it, you know, the brown 70s wallpaper, you know, everything's brown. You know, there was just something, and it was filmed in a time when Britain was in a depression. You know, we had very little money, and I think the whole point of it was that you went on holiday because you'd save up for a whole year to go on holiday to some shitty hotel in England and then get treated so badly. You know, there was just something that everybody got at the time, whereas that isn't going to translate now, I don't think.
Mr. Chris, tell us about the first attempted American version of Fawlty Towers.
So they tried to make a pilot. Well, they did make the pilot. That did not get picked up in 1978. And this one stars Betty White. Yeah.
Is she...
Is she what?
I was going to say, does she play the character of Sybil?
She
believe the
plays
wife, right?
the wife, yes,
Yeah.
Gladys. And this is called Snavely's Hotel Snavely. Is that what it's called? Snavely Manor.
Wow.
Here. It looks pretty similar, this dining room.
It does.
We'll just watch a little bit of this. And this is the lead is Harvey Korman.
I'd like a word with you.
When I finished my drink.
You have.
Excuse me. What do you think you're doing?
Well, I know what you're doing.
What is that supposed to mean?
Fooling around with one of the guests again.
Henry, for heaven's
Never
sake,
mind. I don't want this place looking like a singles bar where that hotel inspector comes in here.
Gladys, may I have the check, please?
It's on the house.
I knew it.
Would you be so kind?
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Oh. Bless you, my child. And thank you, my son.
Yeah, that's one of those that has been almost word for word reproduced.
Really?
She's very convincing as the character Sybil. She's called Gladys in this, though, is she?
Okay.
Yeah, she would make a good Sybil. He doesn't have the physicality of John Cleese, though. You know, he's awkward, isn't he, John Cleese? Because he's very tall and skinny, and you know, he's very sharp elbows. But yeah, that was actually quite well done. I thought that was quite good.
And what happened? It didn't get picked up. It wasn't popular.
Yeah, this thing didn't picked up. They didn't have enough faith in it, so they didn't order it to series.
So then, when was the next attempted U.S. remake?
So in 1999, they did another pilot, which did not get picked up, starring John Larroquette. And I imagine they did the same thing. Probably they took one of the original stories from the original show and remade it, but you can tell me this seems familiar, Neil.
Dining room again.
Enjoying your meal here at Whispering Pines? Oh, good.
What the hell are you doing?
Cutting the shrimp. Wanted to make sure they're evenly distributed. 8, 9, 10. Okay.
You have to count the shrimp?
Well, they're not going to hold their little hands up for roll call. 9, 10. 11.
No, I don't like this.
Oh, it'll cool much faster this way. I'll be back to bone your tuna.
Mr. Payne.
Oh, hi.
Any news?
Oh, no, not yet. But you know what? We're getting very close to finding that pin. Oh, look, a naked Olympian. God, look what I found.
My pin.
Oh.
Yeah, that's directly from it as well. But I think in the original, it's something like a cockroach. He's in one of the meals, and he's trying to. I can't remember if it's a cockroach, but he's trying to find it. So that's why he's going round from table to table with a knife and fork. But yeah, the guy playing Basil, he's not right, is he?
No, he's just
More
silly.
of a klutz. He's
too soft-spoken as well. Because the thing about Basil is that he's just very sarcastic, and he's got a real edge to everything he says. Whereas that guy was quite soft.
Yeah, Basil, I think just in the few, I haven't watched a lot of it, but he's got a and Harvey Korman did this in that little clip we just saw. You can almost sense this anger underneath the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Repressed British anger. That's what it is.
Yes. Okay, so that was the 70s. Moving on to the 80s, British comedy and television. Let's talk about the young ones. You said something interesting before we started.
Yeah, I did. I'm scared to say it. No, I know a lot of British people will hate me for saying this because it is so well loved, but I absolutely detested the young ones. I couldn't bear it. I did not like it.
Well, okay, so I don't know very much about the young ones at all. So first of all, why was it so loved, do you think? And then what was it that didn't really appeal to you?
I think the young ones is a little bit like the 80s version of Monty Python. It was silly. It was silly humor that was just daft. It was sort of, I couldn't see the point of it. So I was like my gran watching Monty Python. You know, I'd obviously got to a point where I just didn't find it funny. And I had a friend at school who, because it was aired, I was still at school, I think I was in the last year, who every time we, you know, on the Monday morning, the young ones had been on, and he used to recite the entire show, you know, thinking it was hilarious. And I just hated it. Absolutely hated it.
It does seem like there was a generational divide just reading about it between older generation, younger generation.
I mean, this is getting a little bit sort of complicated and deep, but there was definitely a thing with the youth with BBC One and ITV. So there were 3 channels at the time. There was BBC channels 1 and 2 and ITV. And you had your kids program. So when you finished school, you were either an ITV kid or a BBC kid. Now, if you were an ITV kid, everything was a little bit chaotic. So on a Saturday morning, you had a show called Tiz Was, and it was, you know, like flans being thrown around and nothing went right. It was just chaos. Whereas BBC, you had a show with Noel Edmonds called Swap Shop, and it was all very well produced and, you know, everything was in order. And I was a BBC kid. You know, I watched BBC and I liked everything to be kind of expected. Whereas if you were an ITV kid, you loved that craziness of the young ones. So the young ones was just too out there for me, you know.
With ITV, I don't know much about it, but I think it stands for independent television, correct?
Yeah, so ITV was basically lots and lots of regional TV areas. Gotcha. So they might only have one show that they produced. So, you know, they might be in the middle of Bristol and they did that show, but it would all be put onto the ITV channel. Whereas BBC was all controlled, you know, by the gods of BBC. So they had more money.
Makes sense.
Should we play the trailer?
Yeah, play it, Jay, real quick.
Hello, this is a trailer for the young ones.
Hi, I'm Neil, and I'm one of the young ones. We're going to be coming on your screens very soon with lots of bands and laughter and fun. Let me introduce you to some of my wacky pals. This is Vivian and Mike, and this is Rick.
Right. That's it, Neil. I said 10 seconds. The Young Ones, a new comedy series for the autumn, next Tuesday at 9 o'clock on BBC Two.
The other reason I hated it was because that character, Neil, so he's like, hey guys, you know, he was a hippie. So everywhere I went, people used to be saying, hey, hi, Neil. You know?
Well, I only recently found about this because I recently tweeted out, compared the Barbie movie to Drop Dead Fred, and I love Rick Mayall, but I'd never really gone back and watched a whole lot of stuff he was in prior to that. And so I just started reading about the young ones, and I love Rick Mayall, but on the show, the clips I've seen, I'm like, not quite working for me on the show.
Oh, thank God somebody else doesn't like it.
You can kind of see where the character in Drop Dead Fred came from, though.
Yes.
like you can see even when he was sitting there like picking his nose or whatever, you're like, that's so dropped it.
Well, that's my critique of these characters is that, and the actors that played them, they pretty much play the same character in everything they ever do from this point on. So Vivian, the punk guy, he's Aidan Edmondson, and he kind of plays that character, even though he doesn't look like that anymore. Yeah,
and I put this clip in here just because I just wanted to see if you guys think if Rick Mayall's voice, the way he's talking in this scene, sounds familiar to a certain animated character that's very popular.
Rick is a Wonka, signed the rest of the class.
Yes. Yes, no, that was a sort of in-joke that we had in my form. Actually, I was incredibly popular and everyone thought I was great.
I agree with the rest of the class, signed teacher.
Press me on the stuff, will you? There.
Right.
I mean, that's it. I just wanted to play it. Does that seem familiar at all?
To an animated character?
Yeah.
British or American?
American.
I've got an idea. But I'm not sure.
I have no idea. Is it SpongeBob?
No. It sounds like Stewie from Family Guy.
It does.
And I'm wondering if Steph McFarlane was inspired by...
Well, that scene could be Stewie and the dog. I've forgotten that Brian. Because Brian's like boring, like the character Neil.
Yeah.
So I bet he did watch it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Huh, that's very interesting. Okay, moving on. We've got things queued up. So you tell me now, Neil, if any of these are sort of like, I've got Blackadder next on the list in the 80s.
No, I loved this. Absolutely loved it. But is it series 1, 2, 3, or 4? Do you know?
This clip, I think, is from series 2. Or
good.
Either 2 or 3. It's not from
season 1. Was really bad, and
that was hard to watch.
And then Ben Elton came over and took over the writing, and then it was good, really good.
Now, this is one. Were you familiar with this one, Mr. Chris?
Yes, Roy Atkinson's in this. I loved it. My dad's a huge fan of Blackadder. I remember he was raving about it when I was a kid, and I only watched it until I became an adult. But I loved it.
This is one I'm not familiar with. I mean, I know the name, but, never watched this. Okay, let's go.
Just play a little bit of it.
Regent. And now let's have a word from the Adder Party candidate, Mr. S. Baldrick, who so far has not commented upon his policies in this campaign, but with him is his election agent, Mr. E. Blackadder.
Well, we in the Adder Party are going to fight this campaign on issues, not personalities.
Why is that?
Because our candidate doesn't have a personality.
He hasn't said much about the issues either.
No, he's got something wrong with his throat.
Well, perhaps he could answer one question. What does the S in his name stand for?
Sod off.
None of my business, really. Now it's time, I think, for a result. And tension is running very high here. Mr. Blackadder assures me that this will be the first honest vote ever in a rotten borough, and I think we all hope for a result which reflects the real needs of the constituency. And behind me, yes, I can just see the returning officer moving to the front of the platform.
As the acting returning officer on the world.
The acting returning officer, Mr. E. Blackadder, of course, and we're all very grateful indeed that he stepped in at the last minute when the previous returning officer accidentally, brutally stabbed himself in the stomach while shaving.
I now announce the number of votes cast as follows. Brigadier General Horace Balsam.
Keep Royalty White, Rat Catching and Safe Sewage Residence Party.
No votes. I've Jestine of Madam Biggin.
Standing at the back dressed stupidly and looking stupid party.
No votes.
What's good about that is exactly what our elections are like. It is. There's always at least one candidate that's dressed stupidly, like raving loony party or whatever, and they do read it out like that. But that was a great show because what was clever about it was every season was set in a different era. So the first season was set in something like 1300s, and then the second season was in Elizabethan times. The third season was in the 1700s. The fourth season was in the First World War. But all of the characters are the same characters, but set in a different era. So that's why it's so clever. Because I suppose when they get bored, they just go on to a different era, and then there's a whole new set of ideas they can use. Well, there's always a catchphrase. One of the ones from Blackadder was, he'll always say something like, "Oh, he's as cunning as a thing renowned for being cunning." Because he couldn't think of a better way of saying it. No, that's something I still say. I still do things like that.
I love that his character over the different series starts off really stupid, but as the series goes on, he gets smarter, but his position in the government gets lower and lower. So, by the last series, he's like in the army, and it's actually kind of it ends very sad.
Yeah,
the
last episode,
but it's well done. But it's
yeah. I think the last series is actually so clever because it shows the humor that was in such a terrible situation, and it really did show how terrible that situation was, having to go over the top in the trenches and things like that. But my favorite series was the Elizabethan series, because I loved the Queen Elizabeth, Queenie she was called, because she was like a little girl of about 4, she was spoiled, and she loved Blackadder, but then she'd just turn like that, where she'd want to chop his head off, like, off with his head, and then he'd have to come up with something really quick and clever to save his life. And Baldric, that was the guy with the thing hanging out of his mouth. He's like the stupid one all the way through, but he's a guy called Tony Robinson, and he's a presenter, and he's an archaeologist presenter. It's so weird that the juxtaposition of what he does in real life as opposed to acting.
This one looks like one I would watch. I should watch. The Young Ones, I think I've seen a full episode or maybe clips. It didn't really stick with me for whatever reason. So maybe I also am like, I don't know.
Rick Mail's in the second season, series 2.
He is. He's
Blackadder.
Yeah.
Flash. Is it Flashman?
I forget his name, but yeah, he was great in it.
Yeah, with blonde hair, isn't it? And he's like always, he's always thrusting his codpiece in everyone's face. I've forgotten his name, the character. Well, Stephen Fry's in Blackadder as well.
I think he's series 2 and 4?
Definitely season 2. I can't remember who he's. I think he's in all of them. I think obviously he plays different parts though. I think so. Who else is in it? There's a few big names. Hugh Laurie.
Oh, that's right.
He's in it as well. The guy who plays
House.
That's it. Yeah, can't think of the show. But if you do watch it, Keri, don't bother watching the first series.
Okay, that's good to know. And anybody else in the audience who wants to check it out. Yeah. Neil says just skip the first season.
Actually,
that's the other good thing. You can watch any series in any order because they're like a self-contained thing.
Okay, good to know.
Nothing carries over apart from the characters.
Okay, what about this next show on our list? Also from the 80s, ran for 4 years. Yes, Minister.
Yes, yeah, that was. Well, it was called Yes Minister until the character became Prime Minister, and then it became Yes Prime Minister. It was a little bit highbrow. It was very clever, and now when I see old shows of it, it does make me laugh. As a youngster, I didn't find it. I found it boring because it was about politics, and I wasn't interested. Whereas now I am, and it's they did not a remake, but they did a show called The Thick of It years later, which was again about politicians, and that was brutal, but it was funny, hilarious. It was Peter Capaldi was in that, the guy who played Doctor Who. It's funny, but it's again, it was for sort of middle class people, I think, people that were more interested in politics, but very clever.
So I've got a clip here. Were you familiar with the show Mystery Chris?
I had heard of it and saw clips. But a clip like this one, I like, even though it's not even like super funny, it's just that it seems very true compared to everything going on today geopolitically.
The writing's on the wall.
Well, in any event, we'll have to think of something to make the public think kindly towards administration because of the Europass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Europass? European identity card. Bernard, surely you've informed the Minister.
Minister, didn't you do your boxes last night?
No, I was redrafting the redraft of the draft.
Well, briefly, Minister, Brussels is about to decree that there should be a new European identity card to be carried by all citizens of the EEC. Now, the Foreign Office is quite ready to go along with it as a quid pro quo for a deal over the Butter Mountain, the Wine Lake, and the Milk Ocean. The Lamb War and the Cod Stink. And quite obviously, the Prime Minister wants you to introduce the legislation.
Me?
Yes, well, it's well known that you're pro-Europe, you see. And it would simplify our administration enormously in the long run, so it's a good idea.
Good idea.
Good idea?
Good idea.
Not a good idea?
Political suicide? Trying to make British people carry compulsory identification papers? They'll say I'm introducing a police state again. Is this what we fought 2 world wars for, Humphrey?
Well, Minister, it's really little more than a sort of driving license.
It's the last nail in my coffin, that's what it is.
But you might get away with calling it Euro Club Express.
Why do we have to introduce it? Can't the Foreign Office do it?
Well, in fact...
Oh, I wish they'd played that in 2016 when we were voting to leave the European Union. Yeah, it's that... Oh, it brought back a lot of memories, that, because there was a lot of stuff going on where he talked about the Butter Mountain and the Cod Wars. I don't even know what that is, but in the early 80s, there was a surplus of butter in the European Union. So anybody who was a pensioner got free butter delivered every week. That it's kind of like really weird. And it's what Bob Geldof wanted Margaret Thatcher to send to Africa. And she said, they can't eat butter. You know, and he was like, well, they can do something with it. And there was the Cod Wars. We went to war with Iceland, but it wasn't a proper war. It was a bit, you know, handbags at dawn kind of thing. But what the premise of this show is that the guy, the minister, is a bit silly, a bit stupid. And this guy who you see here on the right-hand side, he's like his assistant, but he's actually running the show. And every episode, it's about him trying to manipulate the minister into doing what he wants him to do. And that's where the cleverness comes in, because it is very clever. I think you'd have to watch a few episodes from beginning to end, because you can't really watch a clip and know what's going on really with this show.
Should we play another clip from this one?
It's up to you, really. What did you think of that one?
Well, I didn't get to see most of it because a door-to-door salesman came to our door and Tiger started barking. So I had to leave you guys alone watching.
What did you think, Chris? Is it worth watching another one?
We can keep going. We have so much stuff. I think let's just keep going.
Okay. Well, next up on the list, I have in the late 80s, starting 1988, ran through 1999, Red Dwarf. Tell us about this one.
Oh, I loved this show. This was so good. Again, it brings back memories. This was on a Friday night, so I used to go around to one of my friends and we'd take a load of beers around and watch. The Simpsons used to be on earlier, and then it was Red Dwarf, and we would get drunk watching Red Dwarf. And it's just really clever. What can I tell you about it? It's about a spaceship, isn't it? And there's a hologram, and the hologram's just this dick. He's just such an idiot. And there's a cat that's evolved into this sort of weird, over thousands of years in space, he's evolved into this weird man. And then there's, is it Crichton, the weird rocky-looking android guy? I don't really know how to explain it other than they're lost on this ship. And it's just what happens to him. It's sort of like Star Trek, but... how would you say it, Mr. Chris?
He's like the last human in existence.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, he's been frozen for millions of years, and so he awakens and finds that his cat evolved, and there's a hologram of his friend, who died. And so it's just a weird, bizarre show. I've seen a little bit of it. I've never seen a whole bunch of it because I could never quite get into it, but I always find it fascinating because it was on the air here in America quite a bit.
This is another one I've heard things about. I'm not familiar with. So
really?
Yeah, I think I've talked about it with someone before on the show also who was telling me about it. But let's watch.
On Monday, Red Dwarf blasts off on an intergalactic mission manned by a select crew of, well, take Second Technician Rimmer, for instance. He's a man devoted to duty.
Is that a cigarette you're smoking, mister? No, it's a chicken. Right, you're on report.
A man spurred on by ambition.
Mister, I have an exam tomorrow which I intend to pass. I know, yet by cheating. This is not cheating.
Why don't you hand your body in and let them mark that?
A man misunderstood by his superiors, and Lister.
I try and respect Rimmer and everything, but it's not easy because he's such a smeghead.
Lister, on the other hand, has no devotion to anything, little ambition, and is a source of constant surprise to everyone.
Lister, not only are you so stupid, you bring aboard an unquarantined animal and jeopardize every man and woman on it.
This is the trailer?
Yeah.
First one.
Yeah, because most of this never happened. You never see anybody else apart from aliens. So this guy who sat down, you don't see him in the show. You know, I think they're just setting the scene.
Oh.
But what most of the comedy comes from the fact that Lister, that's the black guy, he's his arch nemesis is the one hologram from everybody on that ship who's been kept. So the one person who he can talk to is the most idiotic dickhead of excuse the language. You know, and he's always like, you know, checking the rules and won't let, and there's nobody else there. It's like, why does it matter if he smokes? You know, he's not going to kill anybody else, you know, but he's there, you know, you can't do that. And he's like, you know, the constant sort of, you know, that kid in the classroom who always runs to tell the teacher. He's kind of like that, except there's no teacher to run to. But honestly, it's a lot funnier than that clip shows. That clip didn't show anything really.
What about this? Here's the opening theme from series 3. Would this be good?
Play it.
Maybe? Okay.
We'll find out.
That's just the credits, isn't it? That
it just looks so weird.
Yeah, it is.
Did you see the lady with the blonde bob?
Yeah,
she's the spaceship. She's the character that is the spaceship. And there was a guy who played that before, and he was always depressed. So the ship was depressed. So they were always trying to cheer the ship up and things like that. And it's, I don't know, it sounds so shit now I'm saying it, but it was actually really good. Honest, it was good.
I think I always struggled to get into it because of the production value. And I know, like, I'm a fan of the original Star Trek, but I think with the original Star Trek, I can look past that because I know so much of it is making commentary on stuff going on. So I'm looking at the more message of it. And so with Red Dwarf, it's more just kind of silly comedy, which is fine. But, you know, the production value is just, especially in the 90s, I was like, I can't quite.
I think they were doing that on purpose. I kind of hope they were doing that.
It's little things back every so few years, and production values have increased compared to that, but they still kind of keep it.
Love that show. It's kind of like you know, people are, what's the word? They're you know, really crazy about it. I can't think of the word for it, but one of the things that always sort of makes me smile is the fact that the hologram has a H on his head, just so you know he's a hologram. It's like, just in case you forget, you know.
Did you say that it's like a cult following?
Oh, that's the word. I couldn't think of the word. Yeah. Oh, huge. I think they still have. What do you guys call it when millions of people turn up and watch? You know, when they go to conventions. I think they do Red Dwarf conventions.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Well, they did. I don't know if they still do.
Yeah, I don't know how many young people are watching Red Dwarf now, but in the past.
Well, and one of the other, the main guy, Craig something. Is it Craig Charles? Can't remember his name. It was really awful. He was he spent a year in one of the worst prisons in this country, in Manchester, actually, accused of rape, and it was one of the hottest summers, and in this particular prison, they only had a tiny little window and no toilet. They literally had to go to the toilet in a bucket. And he said there were 3 of them in this tiny little cell, and they all had to use this same bucket, and they would only let them empty it sort of once every couple of days. And apparently it stunk. But he was found. It turns out it was a false accusation, but he spent a year in prison. So I think a lot of people had a real an extra love for the show when he came back, because he rethinking his career, because his career was over at that point.
Jeez.
That's almost like in some ways Pee Wee Herman, who recently passed away, when he came back. Now he wasn't in prison, but he'd kind of left the public eye because of a scandal in his case. And then when he came back and started doing that character again, it was just sort of this outpouring of support and fans who had been there the whole time. That's what you're making me think of anyway.
Yeah. So is that what's going to happen with Bill Cosby?
Oh no. I don't think so. I think it's a little different. So next up is someone, it's a show I am familiar with. Rather, I should say a character I'm familiar with. Mr. Bean. Now, I'm familiar with him, much like Monty Python, and I don't know if this is true for other Americans, but I became a fan of Mr. Bean through the films, which came later.
Right.
But I have a couple of clips here from the TV show.
Are these on the Mr. Bean side? Because I wasn't sure if these are okay to play. Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. Because I didn't see a lot of clips hosted on other channels. But if you want to roll the dice, we can.
Let's roll the dice.
All righty. Playing with house money. Yeah.
Do you think that Mr. Bean's litigious?
Change the name, Mr. Baked Beans. It's not really him.
We are what is it we said we were going to say to make sure, even though it probably won't matter. We're showing this.
Fair use. We're adding commentary.
Yeah.
We're going to add commentary. Okay, so here's it even says it's classic Mr. Bean. He's so good at physical comedy, and so much of that being in his face, even.
Yeah.
Like just the
And the thing I love about Mr. Bean, he's like such an innocent, but he's such a git at the same time.
Yeah, like Pee-wee, actually. So I just mentioned Pee Wee Herman. These characters remind me of each other because Pee-wee's such an innocent. We talked about an episode where Mr. and Chris and I were talking about him where, even if a girl shows interest in him, to the character, it's like he doesn't even know what to do. He's so innocent, but at the same time, you can see him get maniacal over his bicycle, and he can be really just kind of almost like a child.
Well, when did Pee Wee Herman come out? That's from the years ago, isn't it? Did that start in the 70s?
It was the 80s.
I wonder whether there was any kind
he got big in the 80s, but he came out in the 70s. Yeah.
Do you think there's a link between the two shows? Do you think there was some influence going on?
I don't know about that.
I mean, Pee-wee came first, but Mr. Bean definitely reminds me of him.
I mean, Mr. Bean reminds me more of like a silent film star, like a Chaplin or something, because he's translated to so many different countries because he's beloved. Like, if you look at the views on YouTube, there's hundreds of millions of views for these clips.
Yeah.
And you look at the comments and people commenting in all sorts of languages because he barely talks. And so that slapstick humor translates very well, which is why he's so popular worldwide.
Yeah. I don't think he speaks at all, does he? And when he does, it's kind
Not
of like
much.
you under his breath. Kind of
Yeah.
Teddy.
He doesn't even have to say anything, though.
No.
He doesn't even have to speak. I gotta stop. stop. We're gonna get hit. But I love this. I could watch this forever.
There's a one clip of him riding up an escalator, and like he's totally zoned out, like he is here, and like he gets to the top, and he's just standing there, and the escalator's like pushing up on. I always do that when I'm on my escalator.
But when you look at him as Blackadder and then look at him as Mr. Bean, he's not the same man.
No.
You know, how does he do that?
Yeah, this was my first exposure to Roy Atkinson, and then I saw him when he did a kind of stand-up performance show, and I was like, "Oh, he actually sounds very well educated. He sounds like a smart guy." Wow.
Yeah,
I'm shocked.
Should we risk showing one more clip?
Yeah. It's up to you.
Oh, come on, guys. Just the beginning.
Oh God, I've seen this one.
Stand up, reading your paper. The exam starts now.
Okay, I should probably stop. That's 40 seconds.
The great thing about that one is where he's copying off the guy next to him, and it's his face as he's copying, because you can just see he's copying, but it's like, how does he do that?
I always loved the rivalry he had with the guy in the blue car, that three-wheeled blue car. He's always running the car off the road. He's such an ass.
Do you have those three-wheeler cars in America?
No. We do have some kind of like I don't know how they're road legal, but I have actually kind of seen they're kind of like motorcycle type vehicles, but technically I guess we do.
Yeah, here they were kind of like the original cars given to people with disabilities, for free. They don't do it now. Now you get a real car. But they were Reliance, were they called? And they were usually blue, but they had three wheels. And what used to happen is because they're not very stable, people used to push them over when they were stopped at traffic lights. It was really cruel, but
not a smart design for a car.
This is that famous you're talking about when he's cheating, and there've been a lot of memes with this image from that video.
So you just can see everything. You know what he's thinking. You can read his brain, can't you? There.
Yeah.
It's funny. Years ago, I was typing in something into the Google search thing, and you know how it auto-completes stuff. Well, I typed in "is Mr. Bean" and it auto-completed retarded. And I'm like, people are typing that in, "is Mr. Bean retarded?" And I just burst out laughing. The way that tons of people were typing this into Google.
Well, I bet would it be aired now? With the whole thing about autism and things like that, because it's clearly autistic, isn't it? Clearly. And they've now people would be saying, it's not funny to make fun of people like that. You can hear them moaning,
Right.
Yes. Same probably with Pee-wee. I'm sure there's been some criticism about him, and he's touched or something. They wouldn't even say touched. They consider that insulting. They would say,
Don't mention touched when you're saying Pee-wee.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, but that was never anything that it doesn't matter. We're not going down that road. He was caught in an adult dirty theater.
We always go to dark places. When
I maybe I'm trying to comment. Should I comment or not? Never mind. Just move on.
So, what are these other clips that you put here? The ones that you included, Mr. Chris, are they not clips from the show? There's something else.
Yeah, they're not the show. Two of the clips was somebody edited him into video games, and then there's one Roy Atkinson on a some kind of talk show talking about free speech, because he's an advocate for free speech and has really taken a stand on stuff. And he recently came out criticizing the way electric vehicles were sold, because I guess he really bought into electric vehicles, and now he's getting suspicious that it's kind of a scam. And so he actually came out with some article in one of the major papers, and he was getting some blowback from it from environmentalists.
Wow. I'm gonna put those. Why don't we save those where he's inserted in the video game till the end, so that we do the funny stuff. That's not
Okay.
like really from the show. Okay. Should we show him talking about free speech? Have we covered that before?
We haven't. We've never covered it, never played it, but if you
Let's
want
take a minute to do it. Yeah. I really like it when you find, like, I didn't know about Richard Dreyfuss and everything he had said recently. I love it when you find that stuff.
Yeah.
It's encouraging because it seems like there are more people.
A lot of those old school British comedians seem kind of based. I mean, obviously, when a lot of the comedy they did kind of pushed the boundaries back then. So.
I'm a great believer that we must have free expression, and in comedy, you must be able to make jokes about absolutely anything. I mean, the only question is you would be wise to choose a context in which it's going to be appreciated, because not all jokes suit all contexts. The joke you tell around a table in a restaurant with some friends is not necessarily something for primetime TV. That's a pretty obvious statement, but you'd be surprised how people like to abuse the context of comedy. And people often say, did you hear that joke that comedian said in that Netflix special? Did you think that was right or wrong? And all I say is, I wasn't there. I haven't heard the joke. I wasn't in the audience when the comedian said it. I don't know what the atmosphere was in the room. If people pay to see a comedian, they've got to accept whatever they provide. I'm a great believer that artists should never apologize for their art. You put something out there, you paint a watercolor, you make a joke, you make a television show, whatever it is. If people are offended, that's their problem.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
Like how smart our boy is.
Yeah. Well, without freedom of speech, comedy dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's always somebody that will be offended by every kind of joke possible. There's always going to be someone.
Yep.
It seems like it's a lot of the British comedians who are speaking up about the culture war and about this censorship that's coming from the social justice left. I mean, you've got John Cleese who's spoken up. You've got
Stephen Fry did at one point. Yeah.
Stephen Fry, Ricky Gervais, Rowan Atkinson. What do you think is happening there?
Well, it's interesting to note, though, those are people that have already made it.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably uncancelable because either they're too rich to care now, or they're national treasures, so people will leave them alone. I don't think anybody who's newer or doesn't have the same gravitas would get away with it. Because all of them are pretty rich now and pretty established.
But we don't see a lot of American comedians who are already established, other than, with notable exception, I would say Dave Chappelle. And mostly he keeps it to the stand-up itself and the willingness to cover, taboo subjects. But I'm trying to think of any others.
Loosely Bill Burr, kinda, a little bit. Louis C.K. a little bit. But yeah, there's not as many. I can't really think of too many like the British counterparts who've actually
like going on the
spoken out.
record.
Yeah,
right. Going on the
and
record and
been
being
pretty
interviewed.
blunt about it instead of going couching around it. Like, well, it's like, no, just say it.
Maybe it's because we don't have, freedom of speech enshrined in our law, whereas you do. So, we have to keep reminding people that we have, that we should have freedom of speech because we don't actually have it. Whereas you guys do. You've got is it the First Amendment?
Yes.
Sorry, not over my head. Yeah, so, you can always quote that when anybody says, oh, you can't say that. Whereas here, we don't have that anymore.
Yeah, the First Amendment, you can say what you want. The Second Amendment is, and we've got the guns to back that up. And Third Amendment's get over it. Okay.
Are they the only three? The others two.
Third Amendment, stop your whining. Okay. So moving on to one of my favorite on the list, Absolutely Fabulous, from the 90s. I don't exactly remember when I started watching this. It was probably in college. And it just I found it. I love the characters. I thought they were just hilariously awful and yet lovable.
Yeah.
Hard to explain how much you love these despicable, immoral, unethical, hedonistic,
Yeah.
characters. Who
A little
one
bit
of
of
whom is
background info.
okay.
Every actress, their name begins with J. So it became a running joke that they only employed actresses with the name J. So every single one of them is got a J. And the old lady, that's June Whitfield. Now, June Whitfield, she's died now, but she was probably one of the most enduring comedians from way back in the 50s. She was very, very glamorous, and she did comedy shows all the way through. She was never out of work. She's a bit like Betty White.
Okay.
She was in everything. She was our version of Betty White. So when she was in it, that gave it some kind of authenticity. And also Patsy, the Joanna Lumley, who plays her, I mean, she's like a national treasure as well. She's been acting for years, and she was in some of the
Bond?
70s shows.
Was she in a Bond film, or was she in some kind of spy thing?
Well, she was in the Avengers, not
Oh.
the Marvel Avengers, in the 60s Avengers, and she was also in Sapphire and Steel, and she was always very posh, because she is very posh. So for her to play Patsy was kind of a bit like, oh my God, it was a bit like seeing, somebody really sort of proper and prim and, playing a prostitute or something. Everyone was really shocked. So that's why it worked so well.
Well, I've got a clip keyed up here. What about you, Mr. Chris? Were you a fan of this show? Did you watch it?
No, I wasn't a fan. I could never get into it. I tried. I was like, what?
I think in the States, maybe it was a lot of women and gay men who loved this show.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Have I missed anything?
Oh, well, so this, by the way, so Eddie here on the left, she's one of the two main characters. This is her family. That's her ex-husband in the middle of the table, and her daughter, and her son, who you don't really ever see. I don't know if we ever see him. I can't remember, but she always holds him up as like the example to put her daughter down. She holds him up as like the best son ever, except he clearly doesn't want anything to do with her. He moved away from home as soon as he could, and he's not in touch with her and does not want to be in touch with her. So just to set this up.
Have I missed anything?
Yeah, they were just telling me about Serge.
Say nothing. Serge, I was just thinking about him. I was just wondering if that sort of thing can run in the family.
What?
Zip it! Being gay, dear.
Serge is gay.
Well, that's true, isn't it, Safi? Yes, it is.
My son is gay. My son is gay, and you knew.
That's all she needs to know.
Where does he live? Where does he live?
Oh,
come on. Where does he live?
don't tell
Hurry,
her.
Come on.
New York heads.
Yeah, New York.
New York, that's it. Patsy knew, yes.
Look how excited she is, because he's just an object. Like that's the thing. That's the funny thing about they're just so shallow, and she's just so excited now. Like I have a gay son.
Well, there's the episode where she says to Safi, isn't it, that she's so boring. You can't even be gay. You can't even be interesting. Which is kind of like now with these. What are these mothers called? Munchausen mothers. That want their children to be trans and whatever. She's very much like that.
Yes, ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I'll show just a little bit more of this scene.
My son is gay and living in New York, darling. I'm going to New York tomorrow. I can see him.
He won't want to see you.
Of course he will. Of course he will, darling. Gay people love me. Oh, yeah. All my friends are gay. All my friends are gay.
Well, the guy who was sat at the table, he was in The Young Ones.
Really?
Yeah, he's the one who plays the sort of boring, not Neil, the one, the sort of 50s looking one. You probably can't remember.
Is that George?
Is he called Mike? I think his name's Mike in The Young Ones, I think.
I've got one more clip. I mean, I've got a few. I'm gonna try to limit it, just to show what kind of character she is. And this is the title of this one on YouTube. Whoever uploaded is called Tantrum. I called it Parentification, because that was the whole thing. Is like she was such a bad mother, and her daughter Safi was like, more of the parental figure, always having to take care of her. And in real life, these things aren't funny, but I think if you're a kid who's gone through this, in some ways, you might find it very darkly funny. Here we go.
Be nice to Mama, sweetie. Darling, think what I could do for you, sweetie. I could get some T-shirts made, couldn't I, for the presentation, darling, with DLA project on them, sweetie. Couldn't I, darling? Video screens. Catering, what do you want, sweetie?
Nothing.
Oh, all right, I'll buy the porridge of the swimming pool.
Mum, you're not coming, and that is an end to it.
I am.
You're not.
Is that what you're like with Anthony?
What a child. No, that's what Tiger's like.
Well, she plays a narcissist so well. The other thing that I always thought was quite funny was about Patsy never eating since 1972.
Yes.
And also, I think there's a scene where she was born in 1920s. So, like, how old did that actually make her,
Patsy was just, yes, she just lived on like cigarettes and vodka. Because I didn't show, there wasn't a lot of Patsy in these clips. This is just a compilation. We're not going to play through a lot of it, but just there's a lot of Patsy in this one. So here.
I mean, you've given up drinking before. Worst 8 hours of my life. I mean, she's the one who ruined your figure in the first place. She's the one who turned you into this potato that we see before. You're very thin, aren't you, Bubble? Yes, she's emaciated, like a brain. How comfortable are you? Well, on a scale of what? Well, childbirth. Oh. Great news. She's fat. No. Better than that. She's dead. No. She's blind. Yes! He just drinks her.
They're just awful. And yet it's like, I don't know, they do that, what would you call it? In a drama, it would be the anti-hero, right? But they do that so well in a comedy where you're just like, these are terrible people, and I love watching them. Mystery Chris, no appeal?
No. Not sold, no.
No. That's another show, though. I'll just say before we move quick, there's like lines from that show, and you mentioned at one point, Neil, that's the sign of a really good comedy, isn't it? Where people have lines they remember and repeat, and just things that aren't even that important to the show, but just things that stuck with me. Like there's that I put in here, maybe I took it out because it wasn't important, but there's this where they're going on a trip and they're like, money, tickets, passport, and that's always in my head. Any trip I go on, I remember, thanks to Absolutely Fabulous, right before I leave, I'm like, money, tickets, passport, like make sure I have.
That's not the one where they go to France, is it?
Maybe it's probably when they go to France. Okay, moving right along. Now this is another weird one, and I'm seeing many episodes of this, but I could not tell you really in a coherent way what it's about. Do you want to explain The Mighty Boosh, which was also late 90s, 1998 to 2009?
Oh, well, I didn't really like this one either. The guy, Noel Fielding, he's called, the main guy, and he always used to creep me out because he kind of is a bit like some kind of a vampire from the 70s. There's something very odd about him. But I think you should just play it and see what people think of it.
Okay. yeah, it's just weird. Okay, I did have a BBC clip pulled up, but I'm gonna do this other one instead. Hold on. Instead
I've
of
never even heard of this show.
it's here we go.
It's on for a long time though.
do
I
what?
have seen this.
Do you?
What'd you say?
I have seen this.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Let me show you something. I call that one Old Greg. I did in that one. I call that one Old Greg. And this one, do you know what I call that one?
Old Greg.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I got some more. I got these two. That one's Bailey's. And that one's Bailey's a bit bigger. And that one's as close as you can get to Bailey's without your eyes getting wet.
That is quite a portfolio you've got.
Thoughts?
Weird, isn't it?
It's so weird.
It's one of them shows that makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable, you know, which is why I was never a huge fan of it. I have seen it, but never quite.
Kind of reminds me of an Adult Swim show, you know, like a Tim and Eric, like just really weird, absurdist. It's just kind of strange, sometimes unnerving, like you were mentioning, Neil. But yeah, very odd. I remember an ex-girlfriend of mine that showed me that old Greg clip, and she kept quoting that. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" It was weird.
I think it's in that place where people who and I went through this phase where when I was younger, and I think there were sometimes I liked things just because they were weird, just because they didn't make sense. And
yeah, I think that was, you know, when you were talking about Monty Python earlier, I think it's exactly that reason why people like that and the young ones, because it didn't make sense. It was like their thing, isn't it? It's your thing that other people don't understand.
Right. But Monty Python, to me, it makes a lot more sense than the Mighty Boosh. And
because you're older.
Oh, okay. Whereas the Mighty Boosh is sort of like, you know,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of them shows where you would smile, but you wouldn't necessarily laugh. You know, there's no belly laughs with that show.
Right.
It's just bizarre. That guy, the comedian, Neil, what's his name again?
Oh, I said his name and it's gone now.
Neil.
I can see him. Noel Fielding.
Noel Fielding. Sorry, I got it wrong. So I did watch for a while. I got into that. It was like the British Bake Off show. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And they bring on comedians, and they brought on, at one point they had him sort of hosting it, and that was pretty funny seeing him in that kind of a role where he's much toned down and subdued.
Yeah.
And then they also had Matt Lucas from Little Britain
That's
at one
right.
point, and I watch your baking shows, Neil.
Do you watch the sewing show as well?
No, what's the sewing show?
The Great British Sewing Bee.
What? Okay.
Keri knows what she's doing tonight.
Oh, here's another show for you then. Naked Attraction.
What is that?
Well, I can't believe it didn't come from America because it's so bizarre. It's a show where it's a dating show where they want to choose someone. So the people that they're choosing from are all naked. And you see everything, and they get rid of each person based on what they don't like about their bodies. Yes, it's as bad as it sounds.
Wow.
So you need to look that up. Naked Attraction, it's called.
Okay, I will give that a look.
Surprised there's not a US version of that.
That's what I'm surprised it's not from the US. I don't know where it's from. I don't know whether we invented it here. It's like,
I saw a clip of one dating show. It was American, from what I recall, where they would put on like furry suits or something equivalent. Do you know what I'm talking about? They would have masks on, like a silicone mask too, of different animals, and they would do the dates not knowing what the other person looked like, but knowing what they're like. You know, this is what I look like as a cat.
It's the only way I feel comfortable, Keri. Please stop touching me.
Well, you could go with your picture, couldn't you? Stuck on your face.
I'm sure I won't look like a serial killer. Stop running from me.
Okay, this next one we have on the list, League of Gentlemen. Now, how big is this?
This is one of the shows you recommended, Neil. So I put a short clip in here. I just want you to explain.
This is one, I hope that people get this one because it's one of my favorites and it's quite dark, but it's funny. It's not like as dark as some of the other shows we mentioned, like Fleabag that we talked about earlier. It's what it is. It's a place called Royston Vasey. That is a made-up place, and everyone that enters Royston Vasey, you never get out again. And basically, it's just all the different characters in that village, and they are creepy. So there's a taxi driver called Babs, who's a transvestite, but you never see his face. You just see his big hairy arms and his big hairy legs, and he talks with a really deep voice. And like all of the characters are they're like out of a horror film. So I don't know what clip you've got to show, but there's like my favorite couple is a brother and sister. They're quite old. They live in a house, and it's a local shop for local people. So that's become one of those catchphrases now. So if somebody says anything about going local, it's like, what, a local shop for local people? So only local people are allowed to go in this shop. So it's like, think of it as British customer service. So if you've got them, you'll understand what our customer service is like. It's so funny, but it's dark, very dark.
What is this? This is I looked it up and this came up. I was like, what the hell?
Well, this one I don't quite get because he goes up to people and goes, hello, Dave. And then he says, you're my wife now. And then he captures people and they're his wife, whether they're male or female. I've no idea what this character is about in the show. He just kind of appears from nowhere.
How did they get away with this?
Well, they wouldn't now, but how they did then, I don't know. I have no idea.
So this was, how long ago was this? 1999 to 2002.
Yeah, is that all? God, it felt like it was on longer than that. Well, these are the guys. The main guy writes a lot of Doctor Who now, and he's in. He played Sherlock's brother. Have you ever watched Sherlock? And he was in Game of Thrones as well. He played somebody from the Iron Bank. So they've all gone on to do, quite a lot of acting since. So they're quite famous, and nobody ever seems to mention this. It's like they don't.
He didn't get cancelled for this.
No, but it was quite. It was a bit of a niche show. So I'd say to him, "Oh, did you watch League of Gentlemen?" And he was like, "No, I don't like that." So I don't know. I think I was like one of the only people that actually really liked this show, and it is because of how dark it is.
Okay. You pulled this clip up, Mr. Chris?
Yeah, it's very short.
Okay. Yeah, don't blame me for this clip.
Hello, Dave.
I'm sorry?
Is that Dave?
That's it?
It's so bizarre.
I want to see more.
You've got to see more stuff. Yeah, see if you can get the corner shop on there. That's the best bit.
Okay.
The local shop. Sorry, local shop.
The local shop. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can pull it up now. Why not?
But it seems to be like, am I correct in believing this, Neil? But political correctness, it seems like that was more prevalent earlier on in Britain than here. Because again, when you talk about there's no protection for freedom of speech, it seems like that would something that would have grown or fostered.
Political correctness has been around. I remember people talking about it in the 70s here, but I think it got really sort of ridiculous sort of after about 2015. I think it was after the EU vote and after Donald Trump was elected. Okay. It all went really bad. Whereas before then, we always had a little bit of risque humor here that people, got away with. How they got away with that particular clip that you just showed, I don't know. Because it's like nobody else would have got away with that even then.
Right. Or look, as I was looking for the other one, I found this one that you mentioned. I don't want to.
Why are are you just showing this one? It is like just all the way through, honestly. I think this character only comes into it in the last sort of 2 or 3 episodes.
Because that's the reason why. Oh no, we're gonna hear.
We're gonna get you in so much trouble.
I
Neil.
know.
Okay.
I'm already in enough trouble.
The League of Gentlemen.
This is it.
This is it. The local shop.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Are you open?
Yes. Can I help you at all?
Oh, no, thanks. I'm just looking.
I haven't seen you before. Are you local?
No, I'm meeting up with a friend, actually. Going hiking. Cheerio.
Can I help you at all?
Well, yes, actually. I was wondering how much this snowstorm was.
What are you doing?
Sorry.
Don't touch the things. This is a local shop for local people. There's nothing for you here.
I can pay.
Keep your hands where I can see them. I have a husband, you know. He's up the stairs. He's sure to hear everything. If you were to come back here and touch them, Edward!
Oh, hello. What's going on? What's all this shouting? We'll have no trouble here.
I caught him stealing from the shop.
Who is he? Is his identity known?
He's not local.
Look here. We're very proud of our town. This is a decent town and a local shop. We'll have no trouble here.
He asked me to open the till.
No.
He has a plan.
He's so creepy, like you said.
Wait, are all the women characters played by men?
Yeah, it's the same 3 or 4 actors who do everybody. But what the story, it's really creepy because they're actually brother and sister, and they've got a son called David, and David is a mutant, and you never actually see him, and he's like, it's really, and there's some absolutely. I found him hilarious, but there's a scene where she's suckling a pig. You know, she's breastfeeding a pig. You know, and it. I know this sounds wrong. I know it sounds.
Keep going.
You've got to watch it. You have to watch it.
Oh, that actually makes me think of, like, the British sometimes will cross over from funny to just dark funny, like really dark. And there was a sketch on Little Britain, which I know we're going to get to in a minute. I'm not playing this sketch, but it was this character who's still like this adult man who's still breastfed.
Oh,
Not-
Bitty.
Yes.
But what's awful about that is that there are men like that. There are men
Yes.
like that. But the worst one of those is when his grand's there.
Yes.
And the mum's busy. So she's like, don't worry, darling, I'll do it. She breastfeeds him. Oh.
That's the thing, is like these kind of things that were once absurd or just viewed as being like, that's ridiculous. And now you're like, those people were just sort of like saying they're mainstream now. Mhm. Okay, moving on to one that a lot of Americans are definitely familiar with, The Office. This ran from 2001 to 2003, and for some of us, I've never watched the American Office. I've only seen the British version, which I thought was hilarious. And for me, kind of launched. I didn't know who Ricky Gervais was until this show. I mean, this is when he became huge, I think. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, nobody knew who he was. Well, he was a pop star, but nobody knew who he was before then. Nobody remembers him because he never made it.
He was a pop star?
He did music.
Oh yeah, look it up. He was a new romantic with makeup and funny hair. And he was he's hilarious to see.
So this is the very first scene from The Office, the British version. Here we go.
I don't give shitty jobs. If a good man comes to me and says, "Thank you, David, for the opportunity and continued support in the work-related arena, but I've done that. I want to better myself. I want to move on," then I can make that dream come true too, aka for you. The point is, you talk the talk, you do not walk the walk. Vis-a-vis, you have not yet passed your forklift driver's test. The man who gives the jobs in the warehouse is a personal friend of mine. All right? I know the man for the job. Sammy, you old slag. The Brentmeister General. Have you advertised for the forklift driver's job? No, good. Don't bother. I've got the man here. He's perfect. Has he passed his forklift driver's tests? He gives the tests. Yeah. He's first aid trained, yeah. Yeah. We'll get a CV over to you this afternoon. I'm seeing you Sunday, aren't I? For my sins. Oh, he's Elaine. She left you yet? Yeah. All right, see you then. She has left him. I forgot about that.
His character is just, it's just so perfect. He's always, he's a man who needs an audience, this character. And it's not just the camera crew that's there that, he acknowledges the camera crew all the time by looking direct. When he, even at this guy in this scene, I'm watching and it occurs to me, he's doing to that guy what he does to the camera, which is like, he's being cheeky and funny and cool. And he's looking to make sure he's being noticed, being cheeky and funny and cool.
Well, the premise of the show is at that time, there was a lot of documentaries where, like fly on the wall documentaries, where people were going into workplaces with cameras. So the idea is that if you first saw it, you might think it was real. And the thing about him, I've had work people like him, cringy, you just want to smack him in the face, everything about that show makes me remember working in an office, and I can't, part of me can't bear it, being chained to the desk and having an idiot like him being your boss,
It's almost too real.
Yeah.
Something I found out in doing research for this, that there are 16 versions of The Office, including the British versions.
Wow.
So yeah, Brazil has their own version. Saudi Arabia has their own version. Germany. There's so many different countries that have their own version. And it just made me think, like, is this experience of working in the office like a universal thing now? Like, so many people worldwide can identify with the environment that's being presented here. It's just,
Wait, I had no idea. So it wasn't just the US that did a spinoff.
yeah. I put a we can watch this in a minute, but I put
Well, how rich is he now? Wow.
This is the British Office. No, I mean this is the Brazilian.
This is the Brazilian one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Muito bem, vocês foram chamados aqui porque nós encontramos documentos que comprovam que vocês são pessoas que faltam com respeito constantemente, estão sempre envolvidos em baixarias.
Eu não vou pedir desculpas pra essa filha do caralho. Olha aqui, eu também não vou pedir.
That guy actually looks like, not the one with the fan, but the taller guy looks like the guy. I can't think of his name. There's the guy with the hair like that, isn't there? What's his name? Oh, he's gone. Never mind.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of his name. I think I do.
Yeah. He's quite a big actor now, isn't he? He's in lots of things now. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. It obviously translates so well.
Yes.
Yep. We pull up the one, the US and Indian one. So somebody took the US version and paired it up to the Indian version. Show how they sync up.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
It was a woman I was talking to. So she had a very low voice. Probably a smoker. So. So that's the way it's done. I've been at Dunder Mifflin for 12 years.
This is so funny.
So crazy.
Wow. I don't know whether it's the same in America, but the even the setting of the show is like a joke because it's in Slough. It's a paper production place in Slough, and Slough is like the most boring, awful place in the entire country. Nobody goes to Slough. So I don't know where is it set in America? Is it a similar place?
Did you ever watch The American Women, Mystery Chris?
No, well, I tried, but I just couldn't get it. I like the
Yeah.
British version, but I never really liked Steve
Same.
Carell in that role. I like Steve Carell, but just not in that role, and I just could never get into the American version.
I believe you're right, though, Neil. I believe that carried that joke over, and I know there's going to be. I can already hear fans of The Office in our chat being like,
Yeah.
"How do you guys not know?"
How
or
dare
why?"
you? Yeah.
Yeah, it took place. I want to say in Pennsylvania somewhere, which is like, man, Pennsylvania.
I think the
Okay.
thing that I have seen 1 or 2 episodes of the American version, and what strikes me is that the main guy whose name you just said his name and I can't remember it. But to me, it's very obvious he's acting to me. Whereas with Ricky Gervais, it wasn't obvious he was acting.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was why I guess the American version didn't, because I tried to watch it at the beginning too. It didn't click with me because it felt just kind of like just a sitcom. It just felt like a scripted show, and it didn't have as much of that documentary feel. It didn't
Yeah.
feel like a legitimate mockumentary.
It felt authentic. Yeah.
Right.
I think you could almost imagine it having the canned laughter on the American version. You know, that fake sort of comedy type thing. Yeah, I bet that must be though because Ricky Gervais wrote it, so he knew that character inside out, didn't he? So he is that character, I think. You know,
Yeah.
it is him. So he's playing himself, so he's not even acting.
Yeah, it's just comes so naturally to him. Anybody in the chat when this the live chat, if you want to tell us where the American Office happened, that would be great because I can't find it. And
I was just looking in the chat then, waiting for it to happen.
win the shares, win the
Look into the
shares.
future.
Any moment now.
Okay, moving on because we still have shows to cover. You guys have a lot of comedy. The next one on the list is Little Britain, which I also loved. Loved Little Britain.
Yeah,
Did you watch it, you guys?
I did. Yeah, yeah.
I never saw much of it. I think my first introduction was the baddies one, but
The
yeah, I
baddies?
never saw much of it.
Which one's
Are
the
we the
baddies?
baddies?
Is that from?
Oh no, that's
not
a
from-
different. No, that's a different show.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, that's.
Well, I guess I'm a racist then.
I can't think what the show's called, but that's yeah, I know which one you mean. Yeah, they're playing Nazis, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah,
Everybody knows
that's
that
not the-
meme. It says that's from Mitchell and Webb.
That's
Oh.
it. Yeah. Which is where Olivia Colman started. That's where she got her break. So she started as a comedy actress in that show.
Well, my favorite thing about Little Britain is I've tried to describe
The
it.
racism.
No. Now, well, we should mention up front. It has been pulled. You kind of alluded to this earlier. It's been pulled from streaming services, from the BBC, because it is now only a short time later. Again, this is a show that aired from 2003 to 2006. And just a short time later, 20 years later, it's been deemed fatphobic, racist, transphobic, sexist. I'm probably leaving something off. It's probably called xenophobic. And basically the most taboo comedy show pulled from Netflix, iPlayer, BBC. I'm shocked you can still find clips on YouTube.
It's my favorite comedy show. That says everything about me. Well, I'll just say this before. I used to have a lodger, and he was from Hong Kong. He was Chinese, and his favorite clip from Little Britain was the Chinese bride. and ting tong, macading dong. So I used to call him that. I used to say, "Hi, ting tong," and the guy in it is called Mr. Dubwee, Mr. Dudley, but she used to say Mr. Dubwee. And it's so bad. It is so bad, but he loved it.
Oh, yes. Okay. It took me a second. This wasn't on my list of favorite top characters, but wow. Okay, we're gonna have to watch some of this too. Here's the thing about them. They're equal opportunity offenders.
Yes,
They mock everyone. They almost like we've talked about before, you and I, Mystery Chris, about in Living Color and how they mocked everyone. And they played women, they played people of different races, they played people in wheelchairs, they played obese people in fat suits, they played
men with tiny penises.
Yes. Politicians, of course, but it was just sort of like nothing was taboo, and of course now the whole show is taboo. The other thing I liked about it is that they really showcased, I think, what is great about really good sketch comedy, maybe British sketch just all sketch comedy, is what I like about it is when you know the character backwards and forwards. And with Little Britain, I think they did this so well. The joke, the punchline is almost always the same. With this character, this is the joke, but every setup is different, but you're going to get to, and the payoff, it's still great because you're just waiting for the punchline. Like computer says no, like that character, just waiting for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that Andy in his wheelchair. Oh, I won't say anymore.
Well, okay, so this is one of the ones that they find extremely problematic now because, and the character is Emily Howard. I love this character. And the character is an unconvincing transvestite who's trying really hard to be a lady. Okay.
One of the most popular pastimes in Britain after dogfighting and mocking the afflicted is transvestism.
Excuse me, I did not steal a dress. I was merely trying it on for size and forgot to take it off and walked out of the store, silly me.
Yeah, tell it to the judge.
Unhand me, you brute! Rape! Lady rape! Oh.
Lady rape.
At this police station in Pittsburgh, British transvestite Emily Howard has found himself in a spot of bother.
You need to do your mugshots.
Wonderful!
Face the camera, please, sir. Turn to your left. Turn to the right.
Oh, fashion.
Hey. Okay, name?
Emily Howard. Eddie Howard.
Sex?
We've only just met.
Gender?
How utterly absurd. I'm a lady. I do ladies' things.
Okay, so that's a great example of what I mean. Every sketch, pretty much, as far as I can remember, maybe there's one where this doesn't happen, but the joke, Emily Howard's character always gets around to saying, "But I'm a lady," it's just like this. And
I'm a lady. I do lady things.
I do lady things. Yes. Oh, it's just so silly. What do you? You're silent there, Mystery Chris.
Wait, so have these people been canceled yet? Like that guy, like specifically?
No. Although that guy Williams, I've forgotten his first name. His last name's Williams. David Williams. People are desperate to cancel him because a lot of people really don't like him. Matt Lucas, who's the bald, fatter one, who was playing the police officer in that clip, people seem to like him more for some reason.
Is he in Doctor Who or is that another guy?
I think they've both been in Doctor Who. The voiceover was Tom Baker, who's the Doctor Who with the scarf.
So the other comedian you mentioned, Matt Lucas, yes, he seems to be more embraced by the mainstream, and he was in that British Bake Off show I mentioned. They had him on. He also
go on. Sorry, no, go on.
No, but he played just as many quote unquote problematic characters.
I think the reason why he gets away with it is that he's gay, whereas David Williams, everybody suspects he's gay, but nobody is quite sure whether he is or he isn't. And I think he's bisexual, actually, which is why. So I don't think they like him for different reasons. And Matt Lucas has been around for a long time. He used to play a character called George Dawes on a show called Vic and Reeves, who played the drums, and he was quite funny. He always dressed as a baby. But and it's funny is that he's carried the character on, and his mum is I can't remember her name. Is it Marjorie Dawes? She's the lady at the Fat Club. So and it's kind of like there's a universe of characters that they sort of cross over a little bit.
That's cool. Okay, this is one of the ones Matt Lucas is most known for, in my opinion, Vicky Pollard. And you'll have to tell us what is specifically funny about this when it comes to British people.
Okay.
Because I think it plays on some. I mean, we get it, but also, anyway.
Project's in by first thing next week. Vicky Pollard, stay behind.
Good luck, Vicky.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. You come here, please, Vicky.
She's smoking.
Vicky, it's been 2 weeks now, and I still
haven't received your essay on law kitchen.
No, because what happened was I was going around cars, but then this whole thing happened because Shelley told us a bitch. Anyway, it's been completely going around saying that Destiny's stole money out of Rochelle's purse, but I ain't not even spoken to Rochelle because she's like Dash Michaela's hair.
Vicky, I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in your coursework.
No, because what happened was this whole thing happened, what I didn't even know nothing about, because Ashley Kramer's been going around saying that Samantha's brother smells of mud. But anyway, Shab never even stole no car, so Shab.
That's the character. All the time.
The thing about that is I was a teacher, and I've taught Vicky Pollards. I have. And what it is, it's the yeah, but no, but yeah, but no, but yeah, but no. So when you challenge them over something, yeah, but no, but yeah, but, and then they throw something in that is completely unrelated. So I remember one, and this was, it had nothing to do with what I was talking about. And she did exactly what Vicky Pollard did. This is before this character existed as well, by the way. So it wasn't like she was copying. And she just went, yeah, but, well, in Australia, they call sellotape Durex. A Durex is like a condom here.
Okay.
And sellotape is like tape that you, and it's like, that, what's that got to do with your homework? You know, so he must, I don't know how he got that character, but she is, I don't want to say a typical, but I've had one of those in every class that I've ever had to varying degrees.
Is it also kind of like, because the way I read it here as an American is, it's like the equivalent of if you were to have a comedy show here that had a character that was sort of white trash.
Yeah. Well, she gets pregnant at one point. And it's not even funny, but it's hilarious. It's not funny, though. She gets pregnant, but she swaps the baby for a Westlife CD.
That was some of the criticisms I heard of this character early on before the show got completely attacked and canceled from platforms. But it was sort of like, you know, it's classist. This character's classist.
Well, Catherine Tate has a character very similar called Lauren, I think she's called. And she's the one who says, am I bothered? Am I bothered though? So, and she's very much like a London teenager, whereas Vicky Pollard is from Bristol. So you guys won't know that, but you can hear it in her accent. She's from Bristol. And so Bristol are sort of a bit ooh like that, you know, all right, my lover. That's what they say. You know, they've got a very sort of sing-songy accent and they talk fast. So how he manages to do, because I can hear what Vicky Pollard is saying. I don't know whether you can. Do you just hear a load of words, or can you actually understand what?
I can pick out a lot of it, yes, but
Right.
sometimes no. Sometimes it's so fast, I'm like, I don't know what with that. What about you, Mr. Chris?
Yeah, I could barely understand most of what he was saying there. I was like, what? Very disturbing. I couldn't get past the look. I'm very unnerved by it.
And also, well, the look is like, that's, I don't know if it's the same in America, but the sort of, you know, the white trash sort of look, kind of thing, is girls who scrape their hair, and then have a ponytail on the top of the head, and it just looks so bad.
I just want to put one other quick thing on the screen of Vicky Pollard, because she's always in that tracksuit, always, except here's one example where when she's not, it's surprising.
Base. But anyway, Ian Pat was who I once got off with as a joke. Nicked a whole bottle of Dubonnet off Stacey Manning's mum and hid it in the woods. But then he couldn't find it, but then did find it, but he didn't like it, so he threw it at a family of dickos.
Did you push her in or not?
No, because I would never do that. Because once I heard the thing like that, a man pushed a man, and the man died, and that's true. And if you don't believe me, you can ask him yourself. And anyway, John had tripped up Dean Hurst by the waterslide, and he had to have 300 stitches in his face. And when his mum found out, she went down John's dad's car showroom and went out to a box of Astra and done her dirty business on it.
Get
The thing about Vicky Pollard is that there's no harm in her. She's not a nasty person. That's the sort of thing about her. Oh God.
There's so many. So just very quickly, Matt Lucas, since you mentioned this character, so there was this one character, I'm blanking on her name, Marjorie, and she leads counseling and like a workshop for fat people. It's called Fat Fighters, but the whole joke about her is you just learn how much she doesn't follow her own advice, right?
Yeah.
And she's also very she makes fun of people's accents. She's racist. She's just a despicable character.
Today all over America, where there are now huge numbers of obese people or greedy fat slobs.
Okay, so today we're going to try something a little bit different. Can we have a volunteer, please, to come up here and tell us all why they're so revoltingly fat? Yes, Tony. Yeah, would you like to come and join us up here? Boom, boom, boom. Here he comes. Okay, so Tony, you and I know you won't mind me saying it. You are one of the very most fattiest people here. In fact, I often struggle to fit all of you in my field of vision. Tony, when did your problems with weight begin?
Well, it started in school. I was always a little overweight, and the kids would tease me. And the more they teased me, the more I'd eat. I guess I was comfort eating.
It was the vicious circle, wasn't it, Tony?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
That's from the series Little Britain in the USA, isn't it?
Is that one? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so because
okay.
they've got American characters in there, so it's slightly different, a little bit different to
okay.
the original version.
I think this next one too, because they did bring it. They created an American series because it was so popular here anyway. And I didn't I didn't connect as well to some of the new characters, like these next two, which I think were in the American one. But we have to show them because these are two of their most problematic characters. Do you know who I'm going to show, Neil?
Are you going to show Bubbles?
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm going to get shot. This Bubbles is my favorite character.
I want to see
Bubbles de Vere.
As beautiful as that side.
I think so. Yes. Darling? Zero, I don't believe you met my ex-wife, Bubbles.
Hello, baby. So nice to meet you. Don't forget, sugar, we have a honeymoon massage at 10.
I mean, what do you think, Mr. Chris?
I am shocked and offended. I'll never come back.
what's making me laugh is I know what comes next, and they have a fight, and they both end up naked. And it's absolutely hideous. But those costumes they wear are so good.
Yeah, they're just. It's just. Yeah, it's just crazy. These just. So of course that they're called for that those characters, you know, fat phobic and misogynistic and of course racist because David is wearing blackface and a fat suit. I mean,
And a woman.
and a woman.
So it's everything, isn't it?
It's everything. It's the trifecta. Yeah, I didn't show. I'm not going to show the naked tumbling. I'm kidding. Let's see. I've also got. I mean, there's so much from this show. We should probably move on, but there's a lot more, and not all of it is that super. You know, if I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea, because there are characters who are not necessarily. You know, like the first one I showed you is a character of a trans person, or like this one where they say, oh, they're making fun of fat people or. But there are, like I said, they're equal opportunity offenders, and they have a lot of characters that are they just do weirdos, right? Who happen to be
David, the only gay in the village.
The only gay in the village. That's true.
That's so funny.
What about Carol? Because Carol's just
Remind me, I can't think.
The computer says no.
Oh, yeah.
She just works at a hospital and administration, and she's just very unhelpful, and that's the whole character.
An operation today.
Name?
Tell the nice lady your name.
Danielle.
Danielle what?
Danielle Lloyd.
Age?
Nearly 6.
You're 5.
Yes.
We'll say 5 then. Address? Where do you live?
With Mommy and Daddy.
1772 Lincoln Road.
We got there. Putting your details in now.
Danielle's going to have her tonsils removed.
I've got her down for a double hip replacement.
Oh, no. Well, there must be some kind of mistake.
Computer says no.
Yeah, in the ordinary Little Britain, she works in a travel agent booking holidays. So, and she does this thing where she coughs in people's faces. It's absolutely horrible.
Oh, I have seen that. That's so funny because the American version's kind of like wiped out some of my memory. Yes. Hold on. No, we should move on, but I'm going to pull that up on the side. Okay. We've got like 3 other shows here. We should definitely mention why don't you tell us about Catherine Tate?
Oh, again, I love this one. Catherine Tate is very similar to Little Britain, I think, with the characters. And how she's got away with it, I don't know. She's just a brilliant actress as well and can do any accent at all. And it's really interesting. She did an interview with Graham Norton, he's called, and Tom Cruise was one of the other guests. And Tom Cruise was absolutely mesmerized by her. He just couldn't take his eyes off her because she just changes into these characters like so well. But my favorite character is Nan. So she plays an old lady, and this old lady is a bitch. But she does that thing where everybody thinks she's lovely, but then the moment they walk out the room, she just turns.
I see your sister today.
Did you?
She's had the baby.
I know.
She's had the baby.
I know.
Oh, little girl.
I know.
She come up here and see me.
Did she?
Oh, you seen it? Oh, she's come up here. Only a little dinky thing like that. Oh, little lot no bigger than that. Oh, she's let me hold her. Oh, have you seen it?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
And it ugly. Oh, come on. I ain't never seen such ugly charm. It's frightened the fucking life out of me. And then it's airy. Oh, I ain't never seen a child with so much hair on it. It's like a big hairy elf looking up at you. Oh, I nearly had a bilious attack looking at it. They're calling it some funny name and all, aren't they?
No, they're not.
Calling it some funny name.
Francesca.
They're calling it Tesco's.
Tesco is a supermarket.
Oh.
So Tesco is like Walmart. No, the thing about her is her saying is, what a fucking liberty. So somebody will come round and say, oh, whatever, do you want a cup of tea? And they'll say, oh, yes, please. And then the moment they've gone and drank the cup of tea, that's what she says. She goes, what a fucking liberty, drinking my tea. She's just such a horrible, horrible woman.
But she draws it out. This next one you have on the list, well, okay. I've seen a couple sketches with this character, so I'm assuming there's many of them. I've seen one with tennis. I remember this character who says, like, I can do that. Like, whatever is, like, if somebody's like, I'm about to miss my my competitive tennis match for the championship, whatever. So my partner's sick, and she's like, oh, I can do that. They're like, you play tennis? I can do that. And she can't do anything that she's volunteering for. So you included a clip to when she offers to translate. And I'm gonna skip just straight to the offensive part. But basically says
to the good bit.
Yeah. I mean, they're at the UN or something, and he says, oh, this meeting's going to be a disaster, and because our translator didn't show up, and she's like, oh, I can do that. And he's like, really?
Well,
you can?
how funny with all the American Sign Language translators at the moment who are just making it up. Have you seen that? There's been two, hasn't there, so far?
No.
Have you seen it? Where they're doing news thing reports,
yeah,
and they're fake, and they're just making it up as they go along.
No.
Yeah, look it up.
Okay, so I have to look that up. I've not heard of that. But so she comes to this meeting. He's basically like, you can speak all these different languages. Oh, I can do that. Nothing. Okay, so here we go.
Let's address section 1.1, multinational profiteering for the financial year 2005-2006. Helen.
Hurdy-gurdy-gurdy. Hurdy-gurdy-gurdy-gurdy. Gurdy. Oh, bud. Oh, bud. E la no, ma no. Che cosa ta dici, vado dici. How are you? Bongo. This is not my sandwich.
Oh, it's so bad, isn't it?
Again, though, equal
Wasn't
opportunity.
that long ago. It's like, how did we get to where we're at now? It's like, used to be so much comedy that was so politically incorrect. But
well, there's I don't think we're going to shout today, but there's a comedian called Little Miss Jocelyn, and she's a black Londoner, and the stuff she does, if they could be quite racist because she's done all the stereotypes of all the black Londoners. So you've got the ones who are from Jamaica, the ones from Africa, from Kenya, from can't remember the name of it now. And all of them, and there's also a character where she's in an office with all these white people, and she's pretending she isn't black. And then there's a new member of staff that comes in who's black, and she's desperate not to get, that people will realize that she's, in the hood with him, and so it's like if a white person did it, you'd be absolutely slaughtered. But it is quite funny, but not many people know of it, I don't think. It wasn't very popular outside of London.
Yeah, I looked at some of the clips from that show since you recommended it and read about it. And so, yeah, it looked like it only lasted a couple series. And
yeah,
first season did all right, but then second season, people didn't like it and got canceled.
I think you only get it as a Brit if you live in London, because London is very, very, multicultural, whereas the rest of the country isn't quite as multicultural. So the idea of a black female bus driver is very relevant in London, but it doesn't really mean anything to somebody who lives in, I don't know, Glasgow. It doesn't quite have the same. Sorry, I went off on one then.
No, you're fine. I've got another one, I think, just because of some of the themes we've already showed in British comedy, like, for example, Absolutely Fabulous, with her character, Edie's character, being so excited that her son is gay. I think we should show Gay Son.
Oh, God, yeah. I love this one. Actually, if you fast forward this one a little bit, I'll tell you when to stop. When you see three guys walking down an alleyway, so it's a little bit further to the right, keep going. A bit further to the right, bit more, bit more, bit more, bit more, bit more, bit more, bit more. Okay, so just go back a little bit, this one.
Oh, wait.
Well. Is it true your John's a gay man now?
Aye. What of it?
Right. Do these turnips work with these boots?
Yeah, so this one is basically set in Northern Ireland, so it's like really hard people, with the IRA and the whatever. And it's the thing with that one is every time it's something you think is going to be really bad, and then it's like, aye, he's a gay man now. And then the next thing is it's about, oh, could you come and have a look at me curtains, or could you, help me do this?
Wait, John is a gay man, Neil. I can't do accents.
Yeah, gay mon. So say mon.
Mon.
Noi.
Nay, I can't do that.
So N-O-Y. Noi.
Noi.
That's it. He's a gay mon. Noi.
He's a gay mon. Noi.
Jamaican.
I would need you, if I were to ever try to attempt an accent for something, I would need you or another kind British person to write it out phonetically for me.
Well, especially in the UK, because we have so many accents. It's such a small place.
I can do an Irish one.
Oh, go on.
Would you like a potato, Keri?
Really?
That's Southern Irish. So the one that she did was Northern Irish. So in Southern Ireland, it's that I think and I thought. It's that kind of, they don't say the TH sound. Whereas in Northern Ireland they do, and but they have the the weird NO sound. I can't think of a good example, but anyway, noi now, noi.
Okay, so we've got 2 left we wanted to hit on. I know we've gone just a little bit over. We wanted to touch on the IT crowd.
Ah, yeah.
So 2006 to 2013, this is a sitcom. You want to tell us a little about it?
Well, they're an IT team, aren't they, in the basement? Oh, excuse me. So they're kind of out of the way. And I think the joke is that the woman IT person is a bit stupid. Actually, she isn't the IT person. She's just one of the staff, I think, who sits with them for some reason. And then the others, they're typical nerds. They've got absolutely no sense of how to speak to people, and it's just the daft things that happen based on IT and how stupid the users are as well. It's a funny show. Not my favorite, but there are some laugh out loud moments.
Pull up a different clip if you want, Keri.
Don't mind.
There's one clip, the robot clip is just a regular clip, and then there's one where someone synced up the first episode, a segment of the first episode with the pilot, U.S. pilot, that's essentially doing the same story.
Oh my gosh. It's a robot. I've never seen one in the wild before. Where'd you come from, fella? Huh? Where'd you come from? Can we keep him right? I mean, if he doesn't belong to anyone.
I just don't understand what it's doing. I mean, this is weird. What is it? Moss?
What?
Get away from it.
Why? Hello, Jen. It's a robot. What?
Get away! Get away from it! There's a bomb!
What are you saying?
There's a bomb in the bag!
I think this might be a bomb disposal robot, Roy.
That actor is a bit like that in real life.
Really? He's got such a unique hairstyle. Also, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Oh, so yeah, when they did the pilot of the US version, they actually have him in the pilot. So he was so good at playing that character. They're like, we can't replace you. But the other guy, Roy, is that his name? He gets replaced by Joe McHale, who doesn't quite work in my opinion.
Are you a fan then, Mystery Crits?
I've only seen like an episode, like a couple episodes. I didn't like them. They were from the first season, but that clip, I don't know what season that clip's from. That's a lot funnier than what I saw. So.
Hello, IT. Can you please hold? Thank you.
I mean, the British side's already funnier. Like, he's still licking his fingers. He hasn't picked up at all. Like, anyway, I'm being biased, but.
Hello, IT. Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Okay, well, the button on the side, is it glowing? Yeah, you need to turn it on.
Wow.
Wait till you get to Moss.
Oh, wait, you want me to go back?
Yeah, just a little bit to, because he syncs up like perfectly. It's really bizarre.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I closed it.
So good. But yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't order the series, because this seems like something they would have tried to at least premiere on television with Joe McHale in it.
Okay, well, the button on the side, is it glowing? Yeah, you need to turn it on.
Just press it.
The button turns it on?
You press the button. You press it in.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's start from the
You
beginning.
do know how
Do
a
you have
button
fingers?
works, don't you? No, not on clothes.
Hello, IT. Yaha. Have you tried forcing an unexpected reboot?
No, there you go. No, there you go. I just heard it come on.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Weird.
This is weird because he's in both.
Yeah.
Last show on the list before we maybe watch a couple of funny clips if you have time, and then we look at a tattoo. Is that cool? Do you have time?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Inbetweeners.
Oh yeah.
This was 2008 to 2010. I don't know anything about this show.
Okay, if you're easily offended, you leave the room now.
It's very raunchy.
So it's basically some friends in school.
Okay.
4 boys in school, and it's probably the most smuttiest, childish, boyish sense of humor. You know, I can't imagine many women. I don't know. I'm being judgmental here and what bias. I can't imagine many women liking it as much as blokes do. It's very smutty.
Kind of reminds me of like American Pie, but like a British version of it almost.
But worse.
Should I pull up the trailer?
Yeah, I bet the trailer's quite tame though, but go on. Is the trailer for the movie or for the series?
For the series. Yeah,
right,
it is pretty tame. There's nothing in it.
Yeah, because the movies weren't as good. They were all right, but they weren't as funny.
Well, I've also got a clip here that someone added to the document Football Friend.
Is it the one? Is it Jay? Does it say Jay's bribing or something?
No, that one I figured you added because it won't allow us to see that one here in the US.
Oh, right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's blocked
Oh.
here.
That's weird.
Ooh.
Yeah. Let's see.
Wow. Now that one is rude. lots and lots of rude words.
What channel was this on?
Oh, I think it was on Channel 4, which has always been. It's a new channel. It came out in the 80s, and they were always allowed to go a little bit beyond.
Okay. Because I was wondering that, because it seemed like the content that, given that if it was on a broadcast channel, they were allowed to get away with quite a bit. Like here in the States, like you can say shit, but you can't say anything beyond that, really.
Oh, it's everything is in this show. Every word you can think of. And
In
some
fact,
you've never heard of.
They have a huge warning label. I did find one video that's just got a compilation of that character that I couldn't open here in the States. It says, warning, this clip contains strong language, violence, and scenes of a sexual nature and adult all of that and adult content.
Oi, bruv.
Yes, bruv.
3 pints of lager and a pint of Guinness.
Any ID?
Yeah.
Brett Clement.
Yep.
And you know this is an Australian driving licence?
Yep.
So you're Australian.
That's right, mate.
So when's your birthday?
15th of bloody May 1989.
Is he speaking in an Australian accent? Sounds like it.
Right. What do you want again?
3 jars of lager and a Guinness.
The other drinks for your mates?
You betcha, cobber. It's a well-known fact. If you can get a burn on the back of one of these, they just cream their knickers because of the vibration.
Is it?
Yeah. That's why there are no female superbike champions. They all get too horny and have to stop and fud themselves off all the time. Roses are red, violets are blue. Your dong is massive. I want to blow you. Love, from your secret slut.
I didn't get none. I can't believe you got so many. Yes. It is hard to believe.
Dear Jay, I've just baked you a finger pie. Why don't you come, spelt C-U-M, and taste it?
Oh, mate, that's so horny. Where'd you think it's from? Your dad? Yeah, funny. Let me look at these. Jay, you massive stud, please spaff on my tits from your Valentine's bitch. P.S. and on my face.
You can show that again? Nah, it's all right. You never forget. It's like riding a bike, isn't it?
That was quite tame.
That was tame?
That was tame.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I think what I like about it is that the four characters are kind of a little bit like the four characters of every schoolboy that there could possibly be. So there's the one who lies all the time that he's got girlfriends, when he's like 12, and he's doing all these really disgusting things with these girlfriends that clearly he hasn't got. Then you've got the quiet one who believes everything, but it turns out he has on the side, he's actually, very, very successful with the girls. And then you've got the posh one who's trying to do everything right. There's just something about it, and the level of the language, it's just, and the concepts that come up is just horrible. Like there's a rumor goes around the school that there's an old lady that gives schoolboys blowjobs. So Jay finds this old lady in a park, and he's like.
Yeah.
I can't say it. Yeah. You'll have to go and watch it. It's just awful but hilarious at the same time. It's so juvenile, but I love it.
Is there a lot of comedy that touches upon that more sexual, hypersexual kind of comedy these days, or is that politically incorrect as well?
There was. It's probably. I'm trying to think of. I can't actually name a current comedy at the moment that's ongoing. That's any good. Anyway, I can't think of any. For me, I think anything where it goes right to the edge of what's acceptable and maybe even steps over it, that is the kind of comedy I like. Whatever whether it's being racist, homophobic, whatever, those kind of things I do find funny that push, because the thing is, most of the time you end up laughing out of shock.
It's because this is really kind of, I find this fascinating because comedy sometimes is funnier when the subject is a sacred cow or something that you're not supposed to joke about, that's like got an element of sacredness. So whether that's throughout history, that's been all different kinds of things that we've been told you can't joke about. At one point it would be God, or look at what happens if you make a joke about Muhammad. There are certain things that we're told, like, this is not funny. Culturally now, what's weird is that some jokes that I didn't used to find funny at all, I just thought they were boring. Oh, that's it's another stereotype joke about how Asian people can't drive or women can't drive or whatever, so dumb and tired and played out. I would have thought that 20 years ago. But now those things are funny again because they've become infused with, like, you can't say that.
So they're edgy.
I mean?
They're edgy now, aren't they?
Yes.
Whereas they never used to be. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so weird how that changes. Sometimes I want to tell the woke people, like, if you want people to stop making, like, my friend Chrissy Mayer, who's a comedian, got in trouble or, got attacked online by Keith Olbermann and others and called a racist because she made a fried chicken joke about Black people. And that's the kind of joke I almost want to say to woke people, that kind of joke will go back to being unfunny the minute that you quit overreacting to it, like you can't say that and like it's the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Part of the humor lies in, that's a sacred cow. You're not allowed to do that joke, So I don't know. That's my opinion on some of that stuff.
Well, it's interesting because, like, at the beginning we talked about Monty Python, and if you think the Life of Brian was banned, and they tried, there was all sorts of religious groups protesting against that being shown. So that was really because I think I might be wrong, but I'm sure we still had blasphemy laws at that time. And I think they tried to. I don't know. I might be wrong on that though. It may have ended by then. But it's they definitely wanted to get that taken off, and then gone forever. Never be seen again. So.
And I don't see as many people doing jokes about. I mean, I definitely see a lot of attacking Christians, for example, in the media, in the news media, but I don't see as much comedy about that. And I don't know if it's because of the circles I'm in now or what, but I suspect it might be because it's just not as funny right now because there's no taboo that says you can't make fun of Christians. In fact, quite the opposite. So it's like sort of, people are like tired of it. But, to do a joke that used to be considered tired, like the kind of stuff Andrew Dice Clay would do. I would like never find that funny, but now I'm sort of like, today doing that stuff be kind of funny. Like,
yeah, there's a guy, an Irish comedian here called, well, he's dead now. Oh, what was his name? Dave Allen. He had a missing finger, and he used to do a lot of religious jokes, and they were hilarious and kind of pushed the boundary for the 70s. So they weren't rude or crude, but it was definitely going against what was seen as being okay. You know, he was a great comedian, actually. He never did anything. Did he have a show? Yeah, he had a stand-up show, and he also did sitcom stuff, but his stand-up show was always better.
Well, we've had quite a long episode tonight. We thank you guys for sticking with us. And thank you, Neil, for sticking around and being our British humor expert.
You're welcome. People here will be like, him, an expert? You what? Never seen him laugh.
See you laugh all the time. We have a couple of things. What do you think I should show next, Mystery Chris?
The first link, which you may have pulled this as well, but yeah, play this one. See if this is accurate, Neil, if you feel this is an accurate representation of Britain.
Okay.
Are you talking about the first one under funny?
Yes.
Okay. I assumed you weren't saying the name because you wanted it to be a surprise.
Yeah. Should be good.
It's already funny.
On you. Out for another day of whimsical japes.
Do not have a cow, father.
No, we no longer have a cow, but we still have our pride.
Do we, father? Homer, the we ain't got to hear the yon statue of Winston Churchill.
Why, you diminutive? Well, Marjorie, the boy is dead. Eat your flag. The Simpsons.
I love the grey sky.
Yeah.
That's pretty accurate. Yeah, the only thing that isn't is the accent, because nobody sort of talks like that I know
of. There's a couple of other Simpsons things. This was here, I'll just play it.
You're watching PBS.
That was true.
Yeah.
Thames.
Hey, I'm as surprised as you.
What'd you say?
Sorry, that Thames, that thing that came up on the TV, that is Thames Television. That is their logo.
Oh, okay.
But I've stumbled upon the most delicious British sitcom.
Do shut up.
It's about a hard-drinking yet loving family of soccer hooligans. If they're not having a go with a bird, they're having a row with a wanker.
Cheeky.
Jolly sodding Xmas, Major. Choke on it!
Well, I'm surprised the Simpsons had that word in it.
Which one?
The W word.
Oh.
Did you see the Manchester flag on the wall?
Yeah.
But they had London accents.
Oh. Well, for us, that's not like such a dirty word. You know how the words like translate where there's just a little different. So wanker, it feels like kind of a fake dirty word here. It doesn't feel like a real dirty word.
Like saying,
yeah.
Right. Well, you would. It's hard to say. You can call your friends that.
Okay.
But it's very offensive if you call it to someone you don't know.
Really?
Well, yeah, because it's an act. It's masturbation. Yeah. And that's what you call it. Yeah, I guess would you call it jerking off, I suppose, in America? See, we don't use that phrase. But in the Inbetweeners, one of the things that, like there's a catchphrase for most shows, that one is bus wanker. And what he does, he's in the car. So they're showing off because he's got his first car. And he leans out the window and there's all these people stood at the bus stop. And he shouts out, bus wankers! Like that, which is happening all over the country now because of that show. And then they end up stopping at a red light. and all the people from the bus stop come and get them. And it's like, but yeah, that's really, really offensive.
It doesn't translate the same here. There are a couple of other ones like that, like Fanny.
Oh
It's
yeah,
not,
that's a bad word.
it's not a bad word here. It means your bottom. It's like saying bottom, basically.
Right.
But
Like
I
it's
know it.
vagina here.
Yeah, very different there.
And fag, like you could say, "Oh, can I bum a fag?" Now that doesn't mean what it means in America.
Yeah, cigarettes. Good old
Yeah,
cigarettes.
it means, "Can I have one of your cigarettes?"
Okay, here we go. This is yet another Simpsons British. I don't know what is with the Simpsons British stuff. Maybe because you guys like the show so much.
Yeah, it could be.
Donut.
Don't have a cow, man.
Donuts.
Don't have a cow, man.
Cows.
Enough already. Face it, family, this cheap knockoff isn't fooling anyone. Let's just admit it. Dad is really Captain Pugwash. Mom is Mr. Ben. Bart is Charlie the cat from those creepy public information films. And the sofa is just Bagpuss under a blanket.
But Emily loved him.
Finally accepted the terrible truth.
We can't replace The Simpsons. Come on, we might as well go over and watch it on Channel 4. I guess we won't. And you.
They're all my childhood TV shows.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, so all those characters are from British things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got none of those references. I was like, what?
No idea.
Charlie Says was a cat that used to go, and there was a little boy sat next to him, and he'd say, "Charlie says don't play with matches." And then there'd be another one that would be, "Charlie says don't talk to strangers." So it was like a public warning thing for kids, but people didn't listen to the message. They just liked watching the cat because it was quite cute. What was the other one? I can't remember. Oh, Captain Pugwash. So he was a pirate, and there's an urban myth. It's not actually true, but he had two shipmates, and one of them was called Master Bates, and the other one was called Seaman Staines. But it isn't actually true. But you'll have people here that swear blind that they remember that, but it wasn't that. It never happened.
Wow.
Oh, and Roger the cabin boy, and it wasn't called, because Roger is another word for sex.
No.
Really?
Yeah, so if you Roger someone, it means you've had sex with them.
What about the people named Roger? Like, what? Well, that's unfortunate.
So Roger the cabin boy, Master Bates, and Seaman Staines, but none of them were true. None of them actually were real.
Okay, I'm taking notes, Roger.
How is cabin boy? Would your name be a euphemism for sex or masturbation?
Never heard of it. What do you think, Mystery Chris? Should we wrap it up with some tattoos?
Let's do tattoos.
So, have you ever seen this game we play at the end?
I don't think I have. Oh, is it really bad tattoos? Is that what it is?
We just sometimes will, just curious, we'll look and see if anybody has gotten tattoos of any of the subjects we've talked about, just to see, yes, bad tattoos. Like, the weirdest would probably be, what's the weirdest we've seen?
Chris Rock being slapped by Will Smith.
No.
Oh, yeah, that's a tattoo.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
That's what we ask every week.
OMG.
So here's some that Mystery Chris found. These are some Monty Python tattoos.
Ministry of Funny Walks, the first one.
Yeah.
Knights who say, "Nyeh."
Yeah. Just a flesh wound. There's a lot of those.
Yeah, that is very popular. Oh.
It's but a scratch. Wow. Oh, there's one with the knight with the bunny chewing his throat. Down in the bottom right corner.
Spam.
Yeah, the bunny.
Spam. Do you know what spam is?
I don't think
No.
anyone knows what Spam is.
It's tinned meat. So it's kind of
Oh,
like
yeah.
this ham thing.
Oh yeah, we have Spam.
Ah, yeah.
I thought you meant you were going to tell us what the ingredients
Yeah,
were.
what was in it?
Oh God, no, no, I didn't.
No
I think
way.
it's like Soylent Green.
Little
humans,
horse,
I
some
think.
rat tail, all kinds of meat to thrown in there.
Has anybody done a tattoo of Vicky Pollard?
Oh, I guarantee you. I'm going to look that one up next. Here, we've got Mystery Chris queued these up. I'll show you in the meantime while I'm looking. These are some red dwarf tattoos.
Ah, yeah, there'll be a lot of those.
Yeah, this one's not surprising. They're all pretty good.
I'm always trying to figure out what the body part is. That third one, are they toes? What are they?
It's the other
or are
game.
they fingers?
What body part is this?
Okay. Get ready for this one.
Oh God.
I don't see Vicky Pollard yet, but I see, look there on the left at the fat.
Oh yeah,
What's
the
her
dust.
name?
Do you know what the
Marjorie.
dust thing is?
Yes.
So that's what they can eat. Dust. You can have dust.
I don't see any tattoos of Vicky Pollard. I just see the Marjorie.
Ah.
Interesting. What other bad ideas?
Mr. Bean.
Oh yeah.
There's bound to be a Mr. Bean. Because there's an animation now, isn't there, as well, Mr. Bean?
Yeah, there's an animated series that's pretty good.
Look at these. There's a lot of these.
Wow.
Some of these are really well done.
I know, disturbingly well.
Look at the one where Mr. Bean is coming out of the zipper in the guy's arm.
I don't get it.
Oh my God.
Why does he look evil?
Imagine, right, Keri, I know you're married, but pretend you're not married. You go on a date and, you're getting physical and he takes his top off and then that face is looking...
That's kind of what we've talked about before a little bit, is what kind of tattoo would make you like not do a second date?
Oh, quite a lot.
I just want to ask any black guy if they're ever with like a non-black woman and she took off her shirt and had like a swastika tattoo. Like, what would they do? They continue? Would they say, "Yeah, gotta go"? I think most would continue.
Yeah, continue, but never have another date. Yeah.
This comedian I used to represent, who was black, he had this very funny but dark bit about doing phone sex lines with a girl with a white girl who can't tell, because he would always joke that he had a white voice that nobody could tell he was black, and he would do his white guy voice routine and stuff. And anyway, then he would talk about, imagine doing when I do phone sex with this voice, and he would do this whole thing on stage as stand-up where you talk about the white girl asking to do like a slave rape fantasy with him, and she would start using the N-word and all this stuff, and he would just keep going for it. And you made me think of that suddenly, because it was like not enough. It was very rape, and he would be like, and then he would just keep going. Like she would say this to me, and he would just do it. Like, just didn't want to stop. So I've got here on the screen some absolutely fabulous tattoos
that aren't absolutely fabulous.
Wow. These are pretty cool. Not that one. But I would totally imagine people would have Patsy, probably more than Eddie.
Wow, that's quite a good one on the left.
Yeah. I mean, I even have a magnet of this picture here on the right of Patsy on my fridge. She's just iconic.
I always think, what do you do if you've got you've had a tattoo of Bill Cosby? What happens if the person you're having tattooed, turns out to commit a crime? or you find out that they're a real douchebag,
Just tattoo some jail bars on top of it, and then be like, "Oh yeah, this person supports them being in jail. High five."
Just last thing, just to see. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we did this. I love that first one.
The pudding pop.
Yeah.
Just.
Oh my god, that's hideous.
Yeah. People get crazy stuff. Look at that Kevin Spacey tattoo with blood on his hand.
That's creepy.
Crazy stuff people get. Mrs. Doubtfire there on the right.
Oh my god. Why?
Anyway.
Why did I come up with Bill Cosby? That's weird.
Yeah.
Is that Paula Deen? There's all sorts of weird tattoos coming up with it.
Yeah.
Oh, is Harvey Weinstein, has he been tattooed on anybody? Or Jeffrey Epstein?
I know. I can't imagine that happening unless some just really deranged person afterwards does it, to be a weirdo. But yeah.
Harvey Weinstein fan club.
There is an actress that just came up who has F word Harvey on her arm.
Why?
Yeah, interesting.
Oh, I had a friend years ago. She had a tattoo put on her foot, and it was her son's name. Now, I have this is the issue I have with tattoos. So apologies out there, because I know there are loads of people that have had these kind of tattoos. I just think, can you not remember your own child's name? But the other thing is, the child was called Oliver, and they spelt it wrong and missed out the I, so it was Olver, and it's just like, what? So it doesn't even mean anything now,
It's like, what is the purpose? Yeah.
There's, when it's always a bit of a trope, sort of, when big sort of men that have been in prison and they have mother written on their arm. I was in a taxi once, and the guy actually had mother written up his arm, and it's like, whose mother? Your mother? My mother? It's like, why? I just don't get it.
Maybe he is a mother.
The weirdest one I saw, Neil, I think I've told you this, Mystery Chris, but when I worked in entertainment, one of my interns, she loved tattoos, and she had a whole sleeve of Nightmare Before Christmas, which was kind of cool. But then she had other things tattooed elsewhere, and she ran out of space, and she got her grandparents' portraits, like lifelike portraits of their faces, on her inner thighs. One was her grandma's portrait looking at her grandpa's portrait, and it's like so weird, because you imagine if you're being intimate with someone, and then it's like, who are these old people down here?
They're
Like
watching, judging you.
Yeah, he's kissing the gran instead of her. You know what?
Like, why this choice? So weird.
The worst ones are babies, when people have babies tattooed, because because I'm a bit of an artist, and Mr. Chris, you'll know as an artist, the moment you draw a baby, if you draw a line, you've made that baby into some kind of gnome. It's an elf or an orc. It's going to look ugly as hell. Any lines on a baby's face makes it into a scrunched up horrible thing. And then you see them, and they're just like, it looks like a troll. That's supposed to be your baby or whatever.
Well, Neil, thank you for spending so much time with us. And
you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And thank you guys for hanging out and walking through kind of an overview of British comedy television shows. I know I've come away with some shows I want to check out now that I have.
Trouble is, I'm remembering things now where it's like, oh, why didn't I suggest that show? Why didn't
We'll have to do a follow-up, and because we didn't even touch on films either,
Yeah.
So, but thank you so much. And Mystery Chris, any final words?
Oh, it was a fun show. Thank you, Neil. Yeah.
Thank you.
Because I wasn't familiar with a lot of these shows. So like Keri said, there's a lot of shows I'm going to go back and watch some of. So looking forward to that.
I think you should watch Ab Fab from the beginning all the way through.
Give it a shot.
What's happening? Okay.
Neil, tell people where they can find you. I should have done this at the beginning, but you guys can find this below too, a link.
Yeah, so my Instagram name is on the screen. I'm also on YouTube as Blocked Magazine, I think, or it's either Blocked Mag or Blocked Magazine. It's bad when you don't even know your own things, isn't it? I'm now on Twitter / X, whatever it's called, thanks to Keri, and I'm not very good on Twitter, I have to say. I'm a little bit sporadic, but I'm trying. I joined it, and I already had a row with someone within 20 minutes of being on there, so which is one of the reasons why I've been avoiding going on there. And also, if you're interested in knitting magazines with a bit of spice, my magazine is called Blocked Magazine, and if you go onto my Instagram or Twitter, you'll see there's a link tree that shows all the episodes, issues,
and it's a free magazine.
It is free.
Incredible. So you guys should check it out. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Mystery Chris. Thank you for everyone for hanging with us in the live chat. And if you like the episode, don't forget to hit like and all those things. So take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.